Chapter 410. Sir, are you sure? Hearing that Zhou Xiaoxiao had booked so many rooms, the waiter was shocked. Of course I'm sure. Hurry up and arrange for us. Then find us a big room. We want to eat. The waiter said, Sir, because the amount involved is too large, please pay a deposit first. This is our hotel's rule. Although Zhou Xiaoxiao's clothes were gorgeous, she did not think that the fat man in front of her could be so rich. As for the others, they were dressed very ordinary and did not look like rich people. Zhou Xiaoxiao naturally knew the rules of his hotel very well. He took out a card and handed it to the waiter. It was a golden card with a diamond cut into its original shape in the middle. Not only was the cut surface bright, but it was also carved with Zhou Xiaoxiao's head. This is... The waiter looked at the card in his hand and asked again. Zhou Xiaoxiao slapped his forehead and said, Look at me, I actually forgot such an important thing. A waiter of your level can't see this kind of card. Go and give it to your floor manager. He will understand and quickly arrange for us. We are all very tired. Okay, then please wait a moment, distinguished guests. The waiter was a little dissatisfied with Zhou Xiaoxiao's words. Wasn't it obvious that he was looking down on her? However, the silly rich hotel had very high requirements for their employees. She did not dare to say anything and hurriedly went to find the manager. Zhou Xiaoxiao pointed to the sofa next to the hall and said, Everyone, please take a seat. I'll handle it. It will be done soon. In order to let everyone check in as soon as possible, he simply followed the previous waiter. This way, he could naturally arrange things faster. He also did not want the floor manager to be surprised when he saw him in the hall. Zhou Xiaoxiao went to check in. Although the others had recovered their magic power, they were still a little tired. They all walked to the sofa on the side of the hall for guests to rest while waiting. At this moment, another group of people walked in from outside. There were about 10 of them. One of them said loudly with a sharp voice, Little sister, quickly arrange a room for us. If we want a luxurious suite, just arrange a standard room for them. Then, find me a pair of twin sisters. This is the good thing about our silly rich hotel. Every room has twins. As they spoke, they strode toward the sofa where the heavenly stem saints were seated. Meanwhile, the heavenly stem saints had just sat down. The one who spoke was a young man in his 20s, about the same age as Ji Dong and the others. He was tall, but he had a protruding mouth and monkey cheek. There were a few red bumps on his face, which might have been pimples or something else. He looked like a skeleton, and there were obvious green circles around his eyes. No matter how one looked at him, he looked like a drunkard. However, his eyes were very bright, and occasionally revealed a trace of power, which was actually filled with coldness. The waiter's face was a little flushed as he awkwardly said, I'm sorry, sir. Our twin attendants don't provide special services. If you need special services, our hotel can help you find them at a special place. The skeleton youth glared at them and said, I don't need you to go to a special place to find me. I want to play with the twin waiters here. The waiters are clean. What do you know? Hurry up and arrange it. The waiter's expression became even uglier. She took a deep breath and barely calmed herself down. She said, Sir, I can't make the decision on this matter. Please wait for a moment. I'll go get our manager. As she spoke, she quickly turned around and left without waiting for the young man's reply. The waiters who could work in the stupid rich hotel were all strictly trained. To be able to make her lose her composure like this, it was obvious that she was quite angry. The waiter's escape caused these people to burst into laughter. One of the middle-aged men who followed behind the skeleton youth even said in a flattering manner, Young master, this chick is probably still a virgin. Why don't you add her and kill 3 birds with 1 stone, hee. The group of people laughed lewdly again. The skeleton youth snorted and said, I've played with this kind of beauty too many times. I'm not interested at all. Only twins can arouse my interest. Where did this swarm of flies come from? How annoying. The one who spoke was Du Exiner. She had just sat on the sofa when she saw the scene just now. How could her straightforward personality be able to restrain herself? Du Exien Er's voice was very loud, so naturally, the group of people who were laughing lewdly heard it. Their gazes also landed on the heavenly stemmed saints who were already sitting on the sofa. The first thing they saw was Du Exien Lanbauer Ajin and Miao Miao's peerless beauty. Of course, there was also the veiled Chen Xishuan. At this moment, Chen Xishuan's body was still a little weak because she had fainted earlier. She sat quietly beside Ji Dong and leaned slightly against his body. Ji Dong reluctantly accepted it. Even though she was wearing a veil, her perfect figure and the mysterious feeling brought by the veil were equally strong and lively. It was not that they had never seen beauties before, but it was the first time they had seen top-notch beauties like Du Exien and the others in front of them. Furthermore, there were so many of them at the same time. For a moment they were dumbfounded, especially the skeleton youth. His eyes were wide open, and the acne on his face became even redder. You, Chao Yi, go and tell the waiter that I don't want the twins anymore. Haha, I, Wang Xiaolei, am really lucky. I actually met so many top-notch beauties here. The heavens are treating me well. As he spoke, he had already arrived in front of the heavenly stem saint. His gaze first landed on Ajin. Other than Chen Xishuan, the other four women could be said to have their own advantages, but a cold beauty like Ajin was undoubtedly the most eye-catching. Wang Xiaolei, who had a skeleton face, looked at Ajin and chuckled. Beauty, where did you come from? Ajin didn't even look at him. She just sat there quietly like a statue of a beautiful woman. Skeleton face, are you courting death? Du Exien couldn't help but stand up abruptly, while most of the others didn't react. They looked at the people in front of them as if they were watching a show. There was no doubt that the skeleton-faced youth, Wang Xiaolei, must have some background to be able to bring so many people to stay in the foolishly rich hotel. However, no matter what his background was, it was meaningless to Ji Dong and the others. Before Ji Dong became famous, he had already killed the crown prince of the Central Empire for the sake of a beauty. Why would he care about these people in front of him? Yo, beauties, you have quite a fiery temperament. I like it. Only a fiery horse can be tasty. This young master can't be bothered to strike up a conversation with you. Beauties, come with me. In the future, there will be no lack of riches and glory for you. This stupid rich hotel is all mine. I have plenty of money. As long as you serve me well, anything can be discussed. It seems like I'm going to sleep with all of you tonight. The skeleton-faced Wang Xiaolei seemed to have gotten carried away with himself. His eyes would change direction from time to time, wandering around the beauties of the heavenly stem saints. He looked as disgusting as he could be. Du Exien snorted angrily and suddenly raised her hand. A white light burst forth and smashed towards the skeleton face. At this moment, the middle-aged man called Chao Yi had just taken a few steps forward to find the waiter, but he instantly returned to defend. With a horizontal movement, he was already in front of the skeleton face. He raised his right hand and blocked the white light emitted by Du Exien. With a muffled bang, the heavenly stem saints were surprised to find that Du Exien-er's attack had actually failed. The middle-aged man called Chao Yi didn't even sway. One had to know that even though Du Exien-er's magic power hadn't reached level 60 and she hadn't used her extreme magic power, this attack wasn't something an ordinary mage could block. Without the strength of 7 crowns or above, it was impossible for them to block it so easily. 7 crowns? Such a flattering villain actually had the cultivation of 7 crowns. Furthermore, judging from his age, he wasn't even 50 years old yet. He was definitely a famous figure in the world of magic masters. Following Du Exien-er's attack, the 9 people behind the skeleton face quickly stepped forward and surrounded the skeleton face together with Chao Yi. A rather powerful pressure immediately erupted from these people. The skeletal face's followers were all middle-aged men in their 40s or 50s. Previously, they all looked frivolous, but when they surrounded the skeletal face, their expressions suddenly changed, becoming completely different. Their dignified bearing fully showed their considerable strength. Although they had not released the yin-yang crown yet, with Ji Dong and the others' understanding of magic power, they could naturally easily feel that the 10 people following the skeletal face belonged to the 10 attributes of the 5 elements. If each of them had the strength of Chao Yi, then they would be a group of very powerful magic masters. But why would such 10 people follow such a skeletal face? Were they stupid and rich? The expressions of Ji Dong and the others all turned strange. Could it be that this skeleton face in front of them was actually the son of that fatty Zhou Xiaoxiao? If that was the case, then it would be interesting. Yo, I didn't expect this chick to have some strength. Her magic power has already broken through level 50 at such a young age. She's also a genius girl. I've never played with a genius girl like you before. Not bad at all. The arrogance of the skeleton face didn't subside at all because of Du Xian's attack. Instead, it seemed to be getting more and more intense. Just like how Du Xian was very confident in her companions, he was also very confident in his group of subordinates. After so many years of success, he had developed a strong arrogance. Young master, this girl's cultivation has reached such a level at such a young age. It's quite good. She probably has some background. What do you think? Chao Yi moved closer to the skeleton face and said in a low voice. What are you looking at? Look at your face. If I want to play with a woman, no matter what her background is, even if she's a princess, I can't play with her? Yes, it's their honor to play with any woman. Don't worry, we'll help you settle it. Chao Yi hurriedly said in fear and trepidation. As he said that, he turned around and said to the others on his side, These people dare to attack the young master. Capture them all and let the young master deal with them. Seeing that these people were about to make a move, Du Xian suddenly put on a scared expression and said, You! Don't come over. Is there no law? The skeleton face snorted proudly and said, Law? I am the law. What are you waiting for? Why aren't you making a move? With a loud shout from the skeleton face, his 10 followers released all their magic power. They didn't neglect Du Xian at all because of her young age. The 10 of them released their yin-yang crown almost at the same time. They each separated some distance and surrounded Ji Dong and the others in the center. Obviously, they didn't want to let anyone escape. At this moment, Zhou Xiaoxiao's voice suddenly sounded in Ji Dong's ears. Teach them a lesson. There's no need to give me face. This kid is the grandson of the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce. He has always used his grandfather's name to do evil. It's not good for me to show up, so you don't have to be polite. The guy who insulted you last time is a direct descendant of the chairman. Hearing Zhou Xiaoxiao's words, the strange expression on Ji Dong's face disappeared. It turned out that this kid was not Zhou Xiaoxiao's son, but the grandson of the chairman. The 10 subordinates of the skeleton face had already released their magic power. Each of them released an incomparably tyrannical aura. Even Ji Dong couldn't help but be a little surprised by the huge magic power aura. Just as he had expected, the 10 people in front of him were all experts with 7 or 8 crowns, especially the middle-aged man called Chao Yi. Judging from the yin-yang crown, his cultivation had actually reached the strength of 8 crowns. Seeing the yin-yang crown of these 10 people, Ji Dong couldn't help but secretly sigh. The foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce was really rich. Just the grandson of the chairman was actually accompanied by experts with 7 or 8 crowns. Moreover, these people were not too old. To be able to cultivate to this level at the age of 50, there was no doubt that this was not something that could be achieved with talent. After all, geniuses like the Heavenly STEM Saints were extremely rare. In the entire Heavenly Gone Academy, there was only one Thunder Emperor, Fury. Therefore, for these people to have such cultivation, it was obvious that they were supported by the foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce. Moreover, it was not the President Zhou Xiaoxiao, but the chairman. No wonder they were so polite to the skeleton face. When the 10 of them released their mana, the first thing that was produced was the suppression effect of the 5 elements. What made the heavenly stem saints amused was that the skeletal faces' subordinates could be considered strange. The 10 of them had all 10 elements, but they were all men. There was not a single woman. In other words, among the 10 of them, 5 of them were sissies. The leader, Chao Yi, was an 8-crown earth element powerhouse. Chapter 4:11. From the skeletal face to the heavenly stem saint's side, the skeletal face's entire guard leader, Chao Yi, suddenly had a different expression. He was calm and determined. This kind of temperament should have belonged to him. The heavy earth element magic was released without hesitation. Coupled with the attribute suppression of the other 9 people, the surrounding air seemed to have solidified. Chao Yi looked at Du Xin'er and said in a deep voice, "Little girl, I know that you should have some background. It is extremely rare to be able to break through to level 50 at such a young age. However, you won't have any chance. If you want to suffer less, then surrender immediately. Our young master only wants girls. The men can be let go. I want your mother's head." Miao Miao could not hold it in any longer. Hearing Chao Yi's words, she suddenly stood up and came to Du Xin'er's side. At this time Ji Dong said, "Miao Miao, come back. Du Ming, you go. I'll leave it to you and Xin'er. There's no need to hold back." "Yes, teacher." Du Ming respectfully agreed. He stood up and walked over. Miao Miao looked back at Hyoheim with a questioning gaze. Ji Dong nodded slightly at her and said, "Du Ming and Xin'er are about to reach level 60. We should let them experience more under pressure so that they can catch up to everyone else as soon as possible." Miao Miao and Hyoheim nodded and sat back on the sofa. Du Ming and Du Xin'er stood side by side. The brother and sister looked at each other and understood each other's thoughts. Du Ming's figure flashed and was already in front of Du Xin'er. Du Xin'er raised her hands and pressed them on Du Ming's shoulders. They were brother and sister, and they had been cultivating together for the past few years. They had a very good understanding of each other. Chao Yi coldly snorted and said, "It seems that you want to refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Don't blame us for being impolite then." Under his leadership, the suppression of the 5 elements released by the 10 guards instantly intensified, causing the air within the range of the suppression to distort. Some of the porcelains placed in the hotel within 30 meters of the suppression started to crack and shatter. The mana of the 10 elements circulated in the air, causing huge mana fluctuations to continuously rise. However, the more they increased their mana, the more surprised Chao Yi and the other guards were. They were surprised to find that the young men and women sitting on the sofa didn't seem to take them seriously at all, especially the white-haired young man who spoke just now. He sat there like an old monk in meditation, and didn't even look at them. Chao Yi's heartbeat suddenly sped up a bit. Could it be that the forces behind these young men and women were even more powerful than the young master? Were they really members of the royal family of some country? Even if they were members of the royal family, so what? A trace of cold killing intent flashed across Chao Yi's eyes. This was the territory of the foolish rich chamber of commerce. As long as they did it cleanly and killed all these people in front of them, who would know that they were the ones who did it? This wasn't the first time they had done such a thing. Up until this moment, Chao Yi and the guards didn't expect that it wasn't because of their status that they couldn't afford to offend, but because of their strength. It was because Ji Dong and the others were too young. Even the oldest, Thunder Emperor Fury, only looked to be in his 30s, and the girls were even more beautiful. How could Chao Yi and the others have thought that they would actually encounter a holy disciple of the radiant heavenly faction? However, in the next moment, Chao Yi's pupils instantly dilated, and a strong sense of danger suddenly rose in his heart. Du Ming and Du Xin'er released their mana at the same time. This time, they didn't release their ordinary mana, but released their ultimate mana without holding back. A bright icy blue and a bright gold emerged from Du Ming and Du Xian's bodies respectively. Du Xian was the ultimate heptametal, while Du Ming was the ultimate hepta-water. Among the 5 elements, metal gave birth to water. Therefore, Du Xian's mana increased in all aspects behind her brother. She used the principle of the 5 elements to inject mana into Du Ming's body, helping him greatly increase his mana. With the previous experience in the forest, the brother and sister pair could be said to be a walk in the park. Although the brother and sister had not yet reached level 60, but through the combination of the two's magical powers, Du Ming's current magical power had suddenly increased to around 7 crowns. This was after all 7 crowns of extreme magical power. Facing the opponent's 5 elemental suppression, Du Ming's ultimate 9th element magical power swept out. The strong attribute suppression almost instantly broke through these people's 5 elemental suppression, brazenly rushing forward. The 10 guards led by Chao Yi were caught unprepared, almost at the same time with a muffled groan, almost simultaneously retreating half a step. On the contrary, the skeletal-faced Wang Xiaolei seemed as if nothing had happened, still standing there, but the expression on his face had somewhat changed. Indistinctly, a faint layer of white light belonging to the gung metal element, was emitted from his body. Du Ming raised his hands, and his eyes flickered with an azure blue light that was like the sea. Rays of icy blue light emitted from his hands, and the temperature in the air dropped rapidly. Everything in front of him was covered in a layer of faint frost. Ji Dong, who was sitting on the sofa, nodded his head. Right now, Du Ming was controlling both his and Du Xian's mana. It was already quite difficult for him to control it to such an extent. Extreme magic power? You? Who exactly are you people? Chao Yi looked at Du Ming and Du Xian in shock. He did not attack the guards, and the uneasiness in his heart became even stronger. It was obvious that the 2 young men and women standing in front of him were definitely not the strongest of the people in front of him. Didn't this young man call the white-haired young man teacher just now? It seemed that he had really hit an iron plate this time. He was not afraid of the 2 people in front of him who possessed extreme magic power. After all, there were 10 of them, and Du Ming and Du Xian's magic power had yet to break through to the 6th crown. However, if 2 more people with such extreme magic power appeared among the other young men and women, it would be difficult to deal with them. The more important question was, why did these young men and women possess extreme magic power? Chao Yi, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and do it. So what if you have extreme magic power? Kill them all the same. Could it be that my grandfather raised you for nothing? The Skullface's clamor did not stop because of Du Ming and his sister's extreme magic power. Instead, it became more and more intense. Chao Yi clenched his teeth. He knew that no matter what, he could not go against the young master's wishes. Whether it was him or the other guards' families, they could all be said to be under the control of the foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce. They might even be slaves for generations. The only thing he could do was to satisfy all of the young master's requests as much as possible. Attack with all your might! Chao Yi shouted. In an instant, the expressions of the 10 guards, who were led by him, became stern. Then, accompanied by a series of clanging sounds, each of their bodies lit up with a strong light. Sets of full body armor with magical weapons covered their bodies, and a 2-handed heavy sword appeared in each of their hands. That was full body armor. Even Ji Dong and the other heavenly stems saints did not have such magical equipment. Whether it was the armor they were wearing or the heavy swords in their hands, it was obvious that they were not ordinary items. After the 10 of them put on the armor, the feeling they gave off suddenly changed. The pressure increased like a mountain, and the 5 elements forcefully suppressed Du Ming's extreme 9th water. There was only one explanation for this situation, and that was that the combined strength of these people had far surpassed Du Ming and Du Xian. The 10 of them were all wearing magic full-body armor and holding magic heavy swords. If such a combination was placed on the battlefield, it would be an extraordinary existence. When Ji Dong and the others went to the Evil Island, the entire Heavenly Stem's army did not have such a configuration. From this, it could be seen that the foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce was not only rich and overbearing, but also had an incomparably strong backing. If the magic masters under their control had a large number of such cultivation bases, it would really be a force that could not be ignored. However, even in the face of such pressure, Du Ming and Du Xian did not have any intention of retreating. The siblings went all out, resisting the pressure from the other party. Du Ming's mana was also pouring out with all his might. Although neither side had made the first move, at their level, they knew that if one side could not hold on in the battle of mana, the other side would only need a thunderous strike to instantly kill the other side. The 10 heavy swords had already been raised, and tyrannical mana fluctuations were constantly blooming in the air. The edge of each heavy sword lit up with the light of their respective attributes. This was because Chao Yi had to pay attention to the movements of the other people on the sofa. Otherwise, Du Ming and Du Xian would have been unable to withstand it a long time ago. Du Ming and his sister were from the Bartenders Guild, and neither of them had a magic weapon. Facing such a strong pressure from their opponents, their feet were already slowly retreating, and the tiles on the ground were shattered. Large drops of sweat had already begun to appear on their foreheads and sideburns. It was obvious how difficult it was to resist. Ji Dong, I'm afraid this won't do. It's too dangerous, Yao Qianshu whispered to Hyoheim. Ji Dong shook his head slightly and said via voice transmission, it'll be fine. I know what I'm doing. This is the simplest way to improve oneself. The greater the pressure, the greater the stimulation of one's potential. Yao Qianshu said helplessly, within your tolerance? I'm afraid that when you face pressure, it's rarely within your own limit. I'll do it. Right at this moment, a cold voice rang out. Immediately after, a golden figure had already rushed out. In a flash, she stood in front of Du Ming and Du Xian. All the pressure was attracted to her in an instant. Among the Heavenly Stem Saints, even those as strong as Fury and Miao Miao would listen to Ji Dong's opinion, and the others were even more respectful towards Ji Dong. There was only one exception, and that was Jin. This was not because of her background, but because of her personality. Jin was the kind of person who was cold on the outside but warm on the inside. She was cold, arrogant, and eccentric. Once she made up her mind, other than the flames that could make her turn back, no one could change her decision. The golden armor flipped up like scales and instantly covered Jin's body. Du Ming and Du Xian only felt their bodies lighten. The siblings quickly took a few steps back and panted slightly. At the same time, they looked at Hyoheim. Du Xian was slightly better, but Du Ming had a look of shame on his face. Ji Dong's voice sounded in their ears at the same time. Pay attention to what Jin is doing. When facing an enemy whose magic power is stronger than yours, you have to use your other advantages to face it. Using one's weakness to attack the enemy's strength is not a wise thing to do. Could it be that you can only rely on extreme magic power? Where's your 5 elements formation? Have you forgotten? After all, Du Ming and Du Xian didn't have much actual combat experience. Hearing Ji Dong's reminder, the siblings couldn't help but lower their heads. While Ji Dong was instructing Du Ming and his sister, Jin had already made her move. Jin didn't care how you tried to suppress it. A dazzling golden light rose from behind her. Chao Yi and the others didn't even have time to see the complicated patterns in the golden light before Jin had already rushed towards them. Chao Yi was the first to bear the brunt of her attack. A strong golden light lit up from Jin's right hand. This time, it wasn't a weapon conjured by her magic power. A 6-meter-long golden scissors appeared out of thin air. The scissors didn't open up, but directly smashed towards Chao Yi's head. How heavy was a 6-meter-long weapon? Coupled with Ajin's 7 crowns' ultimate metal magic power, the instantaneous explosive force produced a tearing sound in the air. Ajin's speed was too fast. In the face of her opponent's suppression of the 5 elements, her speed was not affected at all. She charged forward as fast as lightning. When her golden scissors Widowmaker descended on Chao Yi's head, other than Chao Yi himself, the only ones who could help him in time were the 2 people beside him. The 3 heavy swords met Jin's Widowmaker at the same time. Chao Yi's expression, hidden under his helmet, was very ugly. He knew that this time, he had really met an enemy that he couldn't afford to provoke. The woman in front of him seemed to be younger, but not only was she releasing extreme magic power, but her cultivation was also as high as 7 crown. A person with 7 crown extreme magic power was definitely not someone he could deal with. Boom! The violent sound of metal clashing rang out, and Chao Yi and the other 2 who were blocking the golden scissors trembled at the same time. They grunted and took a few steps back. Meanwhile, Jin used the recoil from the Widowmaker to soar into the air and smashed the second time without any fancy moves. Her target was still Chao Yi, as if he was the only person in her eyes. The killing intent that was so thick that it seemed tangible caused a layer of goosebumps to appear on the surface of Chao Yi's skin. Intense fear erupted from his heart uncontrollably. Although there were 10 of them, Chao Yi felt as if he was the only one facing this terrifying woman. No matter how beautiful she was, he was not in the mood to admire her at all. All he could think about now was how to survive. Chapter 412. The appearance of Jin's giant golden scissors, the Widowmaker itself, was shocking enough. It was 5 meters long, and the blade of the scissors was 3.5 meters long. Its entire body was slender, and the 2 sides of the handle behind the scissors were nearly 1/2 meter wide. They were simply 2 shields. If it were an ordinary person, they probably wouldn't even be able to hold such a thick handle. The weight of the golden scissors itself was even more shocking. Ji Dong had once made a simple estimation. Although Jin's Widowmaker could not be as heavy as his Vulcan sword, it was probably more than 500 kilograms. When Jin chose this golden scissors, Ji Dong's first thought was that she was really a violent woman. Jin's hands weren't very big, so naturally, they couldn't hold the handle of the scissors. However, don't forget that she possessed extreme metal magic power. As soon as the Widowmaker appeared, a strong golden magic power had already connected her hands with the scissors. In her hands, the substandard artifact that weighed 1,000 kilograms was as easy as straw, without any burden at all. Facing 10 opponents with 7 crowns of magic power, Jin's gaze was as sharp as needles. Not only did her intense killing intent completely lock onto Chao Yi, but it also caused the other 9 people to tremble in fear. Her sharp aura actually faintly seemed to have the intention of piercing through the opponent's 5 elements suppression. Furthermore, her 7 crowns of ultimate magic power in terms of attribute suppression was definitely not something that Du Ming and Du Xen could compare to. The terrifying suppression caused the expressions of the 10 people on Chao Yi's side to change drastically. With the first attack as a buffer, when Jin's second attack arrived, the 10 opponents were already prepared. 10 heavy swords were raised almost at the same time. Other than Chao Yi, 4 other heavy swords assisted him in blocking Jin's Widowmaker, while the other 5 people's heavy swords went straight for Jin's body, attacking the enemy's vital points. The cooperation of these 10 people couldn't be said to be lacking in tacit understanding. Unfortunately, they were facing Jin, who had the best combat ability among the heavenly stem saints. Facing the encirclement of 10 people, Quan didn't have any intention of stopping. The Widowmaker smashed down just like that, and her body seemed to distort in the air. The golden armor on her body shone brightly, and another 5 elements formation appeared behind her. The heavenly stem holy disciples all saw clearly that the spirit design that appeared behind Jin was the gold soaring spirit design. Jin didn't have wings, and she didn't use the soaring spirit design to help her magical beast fly. Why was she doing this? Very quickly, they received their answer. Once the shadow gold soaring matrix appeared, Ah Jin's body shifted a meter in the air. Her delicate body twisted slightly. Not only did her charging speed suddenly increase, but she also completely dodged the 5 heavy swords attacking her. While the opposing demon masters were all 7 crowns, under the element suppression of the shadow gold, they could not land on Ah Jin's body. Therefore, as long as Ah Jin dodged, their attacks would naturally miss. The soaring formation could be used like this? A huge question mark appeared in the minds of most of the Heavenly Stem holy disciples. Ah Jin didn't rely on the soaring formation to fly, but used its power to change her position in the air and move through the air. It must be known that this was not a simple matter. In a situation where both sides were extremely powerful, even the slightest change could cause a chain reaction. The change in Ah Jin's figure not only allowed her to dodge the attack, but also increased the speed of her charge, making her attack even more ferocious. At the same time, the direction of her attack also changed because of the change in her body position, causing the main defense of the 5 people led by Chao Yi to be unable to truly be used on the Widowmaker. Such a detail seemed very simple, but it was the result of thousands of years of actual combat experience. In a situation where the opponent clearly had no flaws, she could use her own strength to create an opening for the opponent. Such an ability could not help but make the Heavenly Stem holy disciples gasp. Even Miao Miao's gaze changed slightly. She knew that even if she used the staff of the Earth Goddess and the Silver Wing Hai Dongqing, she might not be a match for Ah Jin within a certain distance. Without considering magic weapons and equipment, in terms of individual combat ability, even Fury might not be a match for Ah Jin. Only Ji Dong, who used the ultimate dual flames, Deity Strike, and the Flying Snake Flash, could restrain her. Miao Miao and Fury were both shocked, and Du Ming and his sister could only marvel, especially Du Xan. She was also a Gold Ascension Demon Master. At this moment, when she saw Ah Jin using Xian Jin to display such a miraculous sharpness and an indomitable aura, she couldn't help but feel her blood boil. She had already decided that she would pester Ah Jin more in the future and learn from her. The gap between her and Ah Jin could not be measured. With her help, she would definitely be able to improve by leaps and bounds. Boom! The second strike landed heavily on the 5 heavy swords, hitting from the side. With Ajin's strength alone, he actually forced the 5 demon masters to fall back at the same time. This was an 8-crown demon master and 4 7-crown demon masters. They actually seemed to be unable to withstand the power of Ah Jin's scissors. Ah Jin's body turned back in midair. Her entire body's chi and spirit had instantly risen to its peak state. With the Widowmaker, she circled in the air and smashed down for the 3rd time. In the air, she did not have any chance to breathe and recover her strength, but her 3rd scissors became even more ferocious than the previous 2 scissors. Borrowing power, these 2 words appeared in Ji Dong's mind at the same time. Ajin's 3 consecutive attacks seemed a little rash. She chose to fight them head-on in a 1 versus 10 situation. However, in the process of her attacks, she kept increasing her aura and used the effect of attribute suppression to suppress her opponent's strength. The opponent's strength bounced her body up, but she used a special method to transform it into her own strength before bombarding the opponent again. The opponent's strength was constantly decreasing in the face of her fierce attacks and attribute suppression, while her own strength was rapidly rising. Under this situation, the enemy would only become more and more miserable. What kind of combat experience did he have to achieve this? Ji Dong knew that he couldn't do it now. His attack method was to use his strength to produce an instantaneous burst of power to attack his opponent and kill him in 1 hit. In terms of explosive power, he was undoubtedly extremely powerful. Although Ah Jin's explosive power was inferior to his, her sharpness was not inferior. The most terrifying thing was that Ajin could rely on her super-strong combat ability to lead the opponent by the nose, causing the opponent to completely fall into her attack rhythm. She could not even use 50% of her strength. There was no doubt that after officially becoming a Saint of Light, Ajin's strength had improved greatly. If she could also have a true divine weapon and a mount, Ji Dong knew that she would definitely have the strength to fight against him and his senior brother. Boom! The third scissors blasted out, and a strong sound of metal clashing reverberated through the entire lobby of the Silly Rich Hotel. The 5 people led by Chow Yi almost simultaneously scattered and retreated. Under the power of Ah Jin's third scissors, their 5 elements suppression could no longer be maintained and was forcefully broken. If Ah Jin pursued them now, she would definitely be able to take one of their lives. Even Chow Yi would find it difficult to escape. However, at this moment, Ah Jin did not pursue them. Her body borrowed the force of the third rebound to rise high into the air. With a somersault in mid-air, she had already reached the roof of the first floor. Her feet stepped on the roof and she took a deep breath. The golden light around her body suddenly retracted, and the huge Widowmaker finally opened up at this moment. It turned out that the second attack of the 5 magic masters that Ajin had dodged the first attack had already arrived. 5 rays of light crisscrossed and strangled Ajin's body. If she had chosen to pursue them earlier, she would have been able to kill one of them, but her back would have been exposed to the 5 of them. She borrowed the momentum to fly and just happened to pass through the net of strangulation. When she dived down again, her speed had increased to another level. The Widowmaker's scissors opened up, and a layer of golden light rippled on each of the blades. This was not Ajin's magic power, but the powerful power of the Widowmaker's substandard divine weapon. The moment the scissors opened up, not only the 10 magic masters and the skeletal face, but even the men on Ji Dong's side felt a chill all over their bodies, and certain parts of their bodies felt numb. The Widowmaker had cut off the roots of countless evil men's sins, and it had a rather strange pressure on men. Once the scissors opened up, this pressure would naturally appear. It could be said to be a different kind of mental suppression, and it was one that could not be resisted. In a sense, even Ji Dong's spiritual shock could not compare to it. Of course, this kind of suppression was useless against women, and it was also useless against eunuchs. The 5 people attacking Ajin suddenly stopped under this pressure, and the magic light on their heavy swords dimmed a little. The next moment, the huge golden scissors descended from the sky. Their reaction was to retreat collectively, not daring to resist. Amidst the clanging sounds, the 5 high-quality magic heavy swords were all broken in the middle. It had to be known that although these heavy swords had not reached the level of a demigod, they were still top-grade magic weapons that were hard to buy with money. Only a foolishly rich merchant association would be able to take out such a large set of heavy swords to equip them. However, such thick heavy swords were cut in half by Ajin's Widowmaker. This did not mean that Ajin's magic power was that strong, but it was a characteristic of the Widowmaker. Against any long or cylindrical object, its destructive power would increase by 300%. In other words, as long as the 6-meter-long scissors could cut something, it would be affected by this 300% destructive power. The Widowmaker itself was a substandard divine weapon, and with the 300% increase, even if the quality of these heavy swords was better, they would still be cut in half. When the skeleton face saw the 5 heavy swords break with a clanging sound, his face immediately turned extremely pale. He subconsciously took a few steps back. At this moment, he did not feel that the cold beauty Ajin was cute at all. For the first time, he regretted his actions. Could these people really not be provoked? The expressions of the 5 people whose weapons had been cut changed drastically as they retreated in panic. Although they were not injured, it was human nature to retreat in the face of danger. Anyone would be shocked for a moment when they suddenly lost their weapons. From the beginning of the attack to cutting the 5 heavy swords, Ajin finally had her feet on the ground. However, her movements did not stop because of this. As soon as her feet touched the ground, she had already changed from holding her breath to breathing rhythmically. At the same time, her body moved close to the ground and charged forward like an arrow. At this moment, the Widowmaker opened for the second time. Ji Dong's voice sounded in Du Ming and Du Xian's ears. Look carefully, this is the connection. When facing a strong enemy, the most important thing is momentum, and the accumulation of momentum depends on the connection. Only when the attack is like a tide and connected seamlessly can the opponent not have any chance to fight back. At the same time, in the process of connecting, you can't blindly output all your magic power, but you have to adjust yourself during the attack. For example, when Jin used the rebound force to jump up, and now when her feet are on the ground before coming into contact with the enemy, they are all used to adjust. In terms of actual combat ability, Jin is the strongest among us. Yes, this was the connection. When Jin came out close to the ground and even brought up a series of afterimages, Ji Dong knew that the battle was over. There was no more suspense. Even though she was facing a 7 crowns or above demon master with all attributes, Jin, who had also reached 7 crowns, was too terrifying. Even Ji Dong was not confident that he could defeat Jin and escape unscathed without using the sword of the fire god and relying on his magical beast companion. He would definitely be injured. The golden phantom swept past like a cloud of smoke. It was as if a golden rain cloud had suddenly descended in the lobby of the stupidly rich hotel. Wherever it passed, it was silent. However, its endless sharpness had cut everything within a radius of dozens of meters. The 5 demon masters who had their heavy swords broken had only just seen the appearance of the golden scissors when they were swallowed by the indomitable coldness. Under Jin's powerful attacks, their minds had been taken away, so much so that they didn't even notice the sharp metal spikes that had suddenly appeared under their feet. Their feet were instantly pierced through, causing them to lose their last chance to resist and dodge. In the next moment, the golden scissors had already floated over. This time, it was their necks that were cut off. 5 corpses, along with 5 heads that floated high in the air, scattered in all directions. Before Chao Yi and the other 4 who had been blasted away could rush over, Jin's final target of the golden scissors was the skeleton face, Wang Xiaolei. The skeleton face's face was deathly pale. Seeing that the huge golden scissors was about to arrive, he suddenly clasped his hands together, and a layer of white light emerged from his body. Chapter 413. In the face of the golden scissors that had cut off 5 necks without leaving a trace of blood, Wang Xiaolei's body and mind trembled violently. Fear spread throughout his body, and he quickly released a white light from his body. The white light instantly turned golden, and then a golden halo with a strange luster was released from his body. The halo rotated and let out a buzzing sound. Jin's expression suddenly changed. She realized that after the halo appeared, her attribute suppression effect on the enemy had actually disappeared. The golden scissors instantly closed before the golden halo collided with it. Then, it swept out horizontally. With a loud bang, Jin's body actually trembled and she was sent tumbling. Ji Dong, who had been sitting steadily on the sofa, suddenly stood up. He could tell that the reason why Jin had closed the alloy scissors first was because she was afraid that her Widowmaker would be damaged. The Widowmaker was a substandard artifact. For her to make such a judgment, could it be, taking advantage of the time when Jin was forced to retreat, the skeleton face had already shouted, "Chao Yi, what are you idiots doing? Hurry up and protect this young master. Let's go." This guy also knew how to read the situation. Seeing that he was about to suffer a big loss, he immediately called for his subordinates to leave. After the golden halo in the air knocked Jin back, it immediately turned into a ray of golden light and returned to the skeleton face's body. This guy immediately turned his weak body around and ran. Jin snorted coldly. Her body flashed, and she chased after him like lightning. At this time, Chao Yi and the other 5 people finally rushed over. Although they were shocked, they still blocked her path in the end. At this moment, Ji Dong moved. No one could see clearly how he moved. It was like a flash of light flashed past him, and the next moment, he was already in front of the skeleton face. Chao Yi and the other 4 people were still going all out to fight against Jin, so how could they rush over in time? You want to leave after insulting my partner? Ji Dong stood quietly in front of the skeleton face. The skeleton face couldn't stop himself and almost bumped into him. Looking at Ji Dong's white hair and deep eyes, the skeleton face felt an indescribable chill from the bottom of his heart. Although he wasn't very strong, he was extremely sensitive. When Ji Dong stood in front of him, he already understood that this person in front of him was even more terrifying than the ice beauty who used the golden scissors. "Get out of the way!" the skeleton face shouted with a fierce expression. Ji Dong snorted and looked at him disdainfully. Suddenly, he slid forward and reached out with his right hand, grabbing at the skeleton face. The skull-faced man roared, and the golden light that had blocked Ajin appeared again. The golden halo floated out and instantly collided with Ji Dong. The moment the golden halo appeared, Ji Dong already understood why Ajin would put away his golden scissors and not clash head-on. This golden halo gave off a very special aura. It wasn't the sharpness of the metal attribute, but the elegance of the metal attribute. The erratic aura and the pure fluctuations of the metal attribute made it impossible for people to figure out where it came from or where it was going. However, that indescribable feeling of solidity was real. Even Ji Dong's powerful soul power was shaken. At this moment, Ji Dong was certain of his judgment, but he didn't retract his hand. There was a flash of red light, and Ji Dong's right hand had already lit up with a dazzling light. The blazing magic instantly restrained the golden halo, and the golden halo immediately shone brightly, trying to break free from the red light. However, how could Ji Dong let it do as it wished? With a flick of his wrist, it flickered like an illusion and accurately grabbed the golden halo. Immediately, the golden halo turned red, and the power of collision completely disappeared. The skeleton face's expression changed drastically. Its originally pale face turned red, as if it was struggling with all its might. The golden halo that had been restrained by the power of Ji Dong's fire god sword was also struggling with all its might. It kept jumping, trying to break free from Ji Dong's grasp. However, Ji Dong's right hand was as firm as a rock, as if it had been cast from copper and iron. It didn't even shake a little. Ji Dong said coldly, "A divine artifact also depends on who uses it. I don't know how you comprehended the primal chaos gold, but you don't deserve this divine artifact at all." As he spoke, his left hand had already slapped out lightly. This palm was filled with nobility and elegance, but those who were familiar with Ji Dong knew that even the protection of a divine artifact would be injured by this palm, let alone a fragile body like the skeleton face. "Show mercy." At this moment, Fatty Zhou Xiaoxiao's voice suddenly sounded. On the other side, Jin's Widowmaker had already opened up again. Among the 5 people who had stopped her, only Chao Yi was still struggling at death's door. With a loud bang, Chao Yi was swept away by the closed golden scissors and flew far away. Blood spurted out of his body in the air. This was the result of Jin showing mercy. Otherwise, he would have been beheaded like his other 9 companions. Ji Dong's palm also changed from a slap to a push. With a soft puff, the skeleton face's body had already fallen back and happened to fall in front of Jin. The Widowmaker in Jin's hand fell casually, as if it was very natural for it to fall to the ground. However, it was unknown if it was a coincidence, but the tip of the scissors happened to hit between the skeleton face's legs, making a muffled peck sound. The skeleton face had originally fallen flat, but after being hit by the sharp tip of the Widowmaker, his limbs and head seemed to be hung up by something. All of them retracted into the air, and his entire body arched up like a big shrimp. His mouth was wide open, and he made a sound, but he couldn't even make a sound. His eyes seemed to be about to pop out, and there was no longer any color on his face. His entire body trembled like a sieve, and he suddenly rolled his eyes and fainted. There seemed to be some egg white and yolk flowing out from the spot where the Widowmaker had hit. Obviously, some of the skeleton face's functions had been completely crippled. In the next moment, Fatty Zhou Xiaoxiao had already arrived beside the skeleton face. Looking at him and then at the Widowmaker in Ah Jin's hand, he couldn't help but shiver. He had never really fought with Ah Jin before. Only now did he know that this cold and elegant girl was actually so powerful. He had been watching the entire battle, and Ah Jin's powerful combat ability had left an extremely deep impression on him. A bitter smile appeared on the fatty's face as he said, "Didn't I already say that I would show mercy?" Ah Jin glanced at him coldly and said, "If you don't say it, it will be his head that will be broken." After saying that, the Widowmaker raised it. This time, there was nothing dirty on the divine artifact. This was also one of the characteristics of the Widowmaker. However, when it was raised, the hearts of all the men, including Ji Dong and Fury, suddenly shrank. The deterrence of this thing was really on the level of a divine artifact to men. Ah Jin turned around and left, but Zhou Xiaoxiao had a helpless look on his face. He squatted down and slapped the skeleton face a few times, sealing some of his important blood vessels and saving his life. At this moment, Ji Dong also walked over. Zhou Xiaoxiao's gaze immediately landed on the struggling golden halo in his hand. She swallowed a mouthful of saliva and cursed angrily. F***ck, that bastard Wang Daojun actually gave one of the 3 divine artifacts of the Chamber of Commerce to his grandson. As the chairman of the council, he has openly violated the rules of the Chamber of Commerce. I will definitely not let this matter rest. As he spoke, he had already raised his hand to grab the golden halo in Hyoheim's hand. However, Ji Dong's figure flashed and he avoided his grab. Zhou Xiaoxiao was stunned for a moment and said, "Ji Dong, what are you doing? This belongs to our stupid and rich Chamber of Commerce." Ji Dong snorted and said, "Is it yours just because you say so? Who can prove that this belongs to your stupid and rich Chamber of Commerce? We snatched it, so it naturally belongs to us. Even if it belongs to your Chamber of Commerce, just now you asked us to help you teach this kid a lesson. Consider this the reward for hiring us." Zhou Xiaoxiao was stunned and said, "Ji Dong, you're being unreasonable. The Chamber of Commerce's divine artifacts are not to be trifled with. Even if you passed the Chamber of Commerce's assessment, at most it would only be lent to you for use." Ji Dong smiled slightly and a touch of evil appeared on his face. He said, "Fatty, are you saying that hiring us, the Luminous Light Sect, to fight a holy disciple, and giving us a divine artifact as a reward is too much? Besides, who said that this divine artifact belongs to you? If I'm not wrong, this divine artifact of the Hellion Metal faction should be one of the Heavenly Stem divine armaments of the Heavenly Stem Saints. The real owners should be us. Moreover, you just said that this divine artifact was privately given to this skull-faced guy by the chairman. Even if the divine artifact is lost, what does it have to do with you?" Zhou Xiaoxiao frowned and said, "That won't do. I'm the president of the stupid and rich Chamber of Commerce. Ji Dong, this is not a joke. Have you thought about the consequences of robbing something from the stupid and rich Chamber of Commerce? The consequences are that if the stupid and rich Chamber of Commerce becomes our enemy, it will be erased from this world in the near future." It was not Ji Dong who spoke, but Fury. The 10 heavenly stem saints had already walked over and surrounded Zhou Xiaoxiao. Even as strong as Zhou Xiaoxiao was, he felt a little suffocated. This time, he did not have the help of Chrysanthemum Pig. After all, Chrysanthemum Pig was on the side of the heavenly stem saints. After hearing Fury's words, Zhou Xiaoxiao calmed down because he suddenly felt that Fury's words were not exaggerated. Perhaps, the strength of the 10 young people in front of him, including Tianji, was far from enough to compete with the stupid and rich Chamber of Commerce. However, he did not forget the previous lesson. The Central Earth Empire and Dongmu Empire were willing to go to war for Jidong. Now, the 5 elements mutual generation and circulation formation invented by Jidong could be said to be the lifeline of all the Devil Masters, and the Devil Master Guild would support him unreservedly. Under such circumstances, if they really wanted to destroy the stupid and rich Chamber of Commerce, they might have to pay a huge price, but the final result did not seem impossible. Moreover, if they really fought, there would probably be many people waiting to see the stupid and rich Chamber of Commerce become a joke. After all, as the #1 Chamber of Commerce in the world, the stupid and rich Chamber of Commerce had existed for far too long. Who would not be jealous of the huge wealth behind it? Taking a deep breath, Zhou Xiaoxiao forced himself to calm down. He knew that his choice at this time was likely to be related to the fate of the stupid and rich Chamber of Commerce for the next 100 years. After a moment of silence, Zhou Xiaoxiao finally raised his head and said lightly, "I haven't been here today, and I haven't seen anything. Let's change places." Looking at Fatty's unwilling look, Jidong could not help but smile and said, "It seems that it's really not easy to stay in the stupid and rich Chamber of Commerce. Let's go." After careful consideration, Zhou Xiaoxiao finally decided to put everything on the young people in front of him. Of course, even if he objected, what could he do? Even if he was a rank 96 sovereign, if these young people worked together, he would not stand a chance. The divine weapon in Jidong's hands would still not be taken back by him. Zhou Xiaoxiao waved at a middle-aged man not far away and walked over himself. He whispered something to the middle-aged man, clearly dealing with the aftermath. After they left, the skeletal face obviously could not die, otherwise it would be difficult to deal with. Zhou Xiaoxiao had not shown himself before, so no matter how strong the chairman was, he could not force the blame on him. Even if he recognized Jidong's group, what could he say? The loss of the divine weapon was not Zhou Xiaoxiao's responsibility. Jidong bent down and waved his right hand. A faint white stream of air flowed out of his palm and injected into the skull-faced man's body. Along with a slight buzzing sound, a golden halo separated from the skull-faced man's body. At the same time, Jidong released the restriction of the fire god's power on the golden halo. The golden halo merged with the halo, and the previous struggle naturally disappeared. Jidong did not even look at the golden halo. He had already handed it to Ajin. Ajin took it as if it was a matter of course. With a flash of golden light, the halo had already disappeared into her body. The skeletal face's cultivation was not worth mentioning, only at the level of 4 crowns. However, he had used some unknown method to be able to draw on a trace of the chaotic gold's power. This was how he had fused with this divine weapon. The reason why Jidong could easily restrain him was because his strength was not enough to unleash the divine weapon's power. The other reason was that fire restrained metal in the 5 elements. Jidong used the dual fire to activate the fire god's sword and naturally restrained this ring-shaped metal divine weapon. On the other hand, Ajin was a true holy disciple of Xin. She had also grasped the mysteries of chaotic gold, so fusing with this god artifact was naturally a piece of cake. Of course, if she wanted to completely control the power of this god artifact, she would need some time to adapt and truly fuse with it. After leaving the stupid rich hotel, Jidong patted the fatty's shoulder and said, "This time, I owe you." Chapter 4:14. After leaving the stupid rich hotel, Jidong patted Fatty's shoulder and said, "I owe you this time." Zhou Xiaoxiao rolled her eyes at him and said, "You owe me a fart. As long as you can pass the Chamber of Commerce's assessment, it won't be a problem. I don't like that guy for a long time. If it wasn't for my sensitive identity and the fact that I can't kill him, would I have waited for you to do it? I really didn't expect that old guy Wang Daojun would give the metal divine weapon to that little bastard. It's fine if he's crippled. He deserves to die 100 times for the bad things he has done. It's a good thing that he doesn't have the function of a man this time. Since they couldn't stay in the stupid rich hotel, they naturally had to find another hotel to stay in. As they walked in the city, Ji Dong asked, "Fatty, what's the matter with the speaker? You seem to be afraid of him." Zhou Xiaoxiao nodded solemnly and said, "To put it simply, the foolish rich chamber of commerce was created by the chairman's bloodline. Although in name, the chairman prioritizes strength, the chairman's position is hereditary. This is why the kid you just faced is so important. He is the only male in the young generation of the chairman. He is also the candidate for the next chairman, so he must not die." Zhou Xiaoxiao nodded with a solemn expression and said, "Simply put, the foolish rich chamber of commerce was created by the chairman. In the stupid rich chamber of commerce, the council is the highest authority. On the surface, the president can basically control 2/3 of the council's power. He is the most influential person in the Chamber of Commerce, but in fact, this is not the case. In the beginning, the first speaker of the stupid rich Chamber of Commerce, who was also the first president, had great foresight. He founded the stupid rich Chamber of Commerce and developed it. After that, he deeply understood that wealth does not last for 3 generations, so he stipulated the inheritance method of the president of the Chamber of Commerce. But after all, he is also a human, so he has to consider his descendant. Therefore, the position of the Speaker of the Council was created. This position is inherited by his direct male descendant. From generation to generation, the surname of the President of the Chamber of Commerce has always changed, but the Speaker has always been surnamed Wang. With 500 years of inheritance, you can imagine how much control the Wang family has over the Chamber of Commerce. Although the Speaker only controls 1/3 of the Council's members, these 1/3 are absolutely loyal. As for the other 2/3 under my control, I don't know how many of them will change sides at any time. I have been the president for so many years, but besides being the protector of the Chamber of Commerce, I feel more like an outsider. Therefore, I have long been a little tired." Ji Dong said lightly, "If one day you and the speaker completely stand on the opposite side, then who will get the real support of the Chamber of Commerce?" Zhou Xiaoxiao said without hesitation, "If it's a matter of life and death, he will definitely get all the support. That's 500 years of influence, it's not something that I can change with just a few decades of management. Of course, this has never happened in the history of the Chamber of Commerce. No matter what, the Chamber of Commerce has helped me a lot. Without the support of the Chamber of Commerce, I wouldn't have the strength I have today. Therefore, no matter what, I will never become the enemy of the speaker." At this point, he glanced at Ji Dong and continued, "However, in some specific matters, I still have the right to speak, and the speaker can't go too far. After all, I am the president, and some important decisions must go through me. For example, your matter this time actually didn't affect me, but it dealt a big blow to Speaker Wang Daojun. Some neutral members of the council have chosen to support me. The Chamber of Commerce concerns everyone's interest. Wang Daojun and I are businessmen at the end of the day, and so are the members of the council. In the face of interests, influence is nothing. Therefore, as long as you can bring enough benefits to the Chamber of Commerce, even Wang Daojun can't influence the final decision of the council." Ji Dong looked at Zhou Xiaoxiao and said, "Where there are people, there will be conflicts." Zhou Xiaoxiao sighed and said, "Wang Xiaolei is Wang Daojun's only grandson. This time, you guys have destroyed his ability to be a man. This is a big blow to Wang Daojun. Fortunately, Wang Xiaolei left a root for Wang Daojun in the past. With that great-grandson, Wang Daojun shouldn't be too angry. He still has to hide the fact that he lost the divine artifact." Ji Dong didn't say anything else, but a faint cold light flashed in his eyes. Zhou Xiaoxiao didn't know that when she said that it was not too much to die 100 times, she had actually sentenced Wang Xiaolei to death. Everyone found a new hotel to stay in. After a simple dinner, they went back to their rooms to rest. Everyone had gained something different today, and it was the best time to experience it. Chen Sichuan closed the door and leaned against it. She looked a little lonely. There was still not much progress between her and Ji Dong. Every time she thought of how Ji Dong looked when he was paying tribute to his previous life, she would feel an inexplicable pain in her heart. Her original confidence to chase after him was also gradually disappearing. She didn't know what she should do now. If Ji Dong really said those 3 words to her, would she be happy? After seeing Ji Dong's deep love for the flaming bar, she cherished this feeling more and more. Fortunately, she could always stay by his side. Watching him every day was also a kind of happiness. 1 out of 10 years had passed. There were still 9 years left. What if Ji Dong really wanted to follow the flaming bar after 9 years? Thinking of this, Chen Sichuan's eyes suddenly lit up, and the knot in her heart mysteriously unraveled in an instant. This was because she thought that if she still couldn't successfully win back Ji Dong's heart after 9 years, then if he wanted to go, she would just let him go. Perhaps in another world, she would still have a chance to be with him. At the very least, he would not be destroyed in both body and soul. And for the next 9 years, she would be able to be with him every day. Wasn't this also a kind of happiness? Being able to look at him and feel his love for the flaming bar was also his love for her. Apart from being unable to feel his warm embrace and intoxicating intimacy, her heart was also satisfied. Being able to start over and be by his side again, she shouldn't have too many extravagant hopes. Wasn't the process of soul fusion the same as being intimate with him? Flaming bar, oh flaming bar, you can't be greedy anymore. You're already very, very good now. A faint smile gradually appeared on Chen Sichuan's delicate face at the thought of this. She naturally felt better now that she had thought things through. Although she couldn't tell Ji Dong about her identity, she could help him wholeheartedly as long as she was by his side. As for whether she could make him fall in love with her now, it was up to fate. She would try her best and it didn't matter even if it didn't work out. Just as Chen Sichuan was feeling more relaxed, she suddenly heard a knock on the door behind her. The familiar way it vibrated made her jolt. She moved aside in surprise and looked at the door. Why was he here? She opened the door and saw that it was none other than Ji Dong standing outside. She had just opened the door when Ji Dong had already flashed in like a bolt of lightning and made a shushing gesture to her. Chen Sichuan's heartbeat suddenly quickened. He came to the room to look for me? A man and a woman alone. Could it be? Ji Dong looked around and used his soul power to communicate with Chen Sichuan without any hindrance. He said, "Sichuan, come with me. I have something to discuss with you." Of course, he didn't know what Chen Sichuan was thinking. He pulled Chen Sichuan's arm and quietly walked to the window and opened it. "Lend me the core of life for a while," Ji Dong said to Chen Sichuan through the soul fusion. After his body had recovered, he had already given the core of life to Chen Sichuan. A faint trace of disappointment rose in Chen Sichuan's heart. Although Chen Sichuan had already guessed that Ji Dong couldn't have come to express his love for her, she still had some hope in her heart. A white light flashed in Ji Dong's eyes as he took the core of life from Chen Sichuan. Chen Sichuan could feel his soul fusing with the core of life, as if he was transmitting some kind of message. Then Ji Dong said to her, "Open the window and wait for me here. I'll be back soon." After saying this, Ji Dong's figure flashed and he floated out of the window, disappearing into the night in the blink of an eye. Chen Sichuan curiously looked in the direction he had left. He was clearly using his soul power to conceal himself, but what was he trying to conceal? Before she could think about it, Ji Dong had already returned after a dozen breaths. After returning to the room, he put the core of life back on Chen Sichuan's neck and sent her a sound transmission through their soul. "Don't tell anyone that I came to your room." Chen Sichuan nodded and didn't ask anything. At this time, Ji Dong calmed his mind and looked at her beautiful big eyes. He couldn't help but ask, "Don't you want to know what I did just now?" Chen Xishuan had just thought things through between her and Ji Dong, so she was in a very good mood at this moment. Her beautiful face was brimming with a faint happiness. She looked at Ji Dong with a strong emotion that Ji Dong didn't dare to look at her directly. She said, "If you want to tell me, you will naturally tell me. If you don't want to tell me, then you can't tell me. No matter what you say, in my heart, it will be right. Even if I know it's wrong, it will still be right, except for your own safety. Teacher Ji Dong, I'm sorry about what happened during the day. I was too impulsive." Listening to her words, the expression in Ji Dong's eyes clearly changed. He didn't know why, but in the process of soul communication, listening to her extremely natural confession, Ji Dong suddenly had the desire to rush up and hug her. This girl was really too perfect. Ji Dong couldn't find a single flaw on her. He believed that if he didn't have the flaming bar before, he would probably have already fallen into her gentleness. As the time they spent together grew longer, although he wouldn't give his love to Chen Xishuan, he couldn't deny that his recognition of her was increasing. He even developed a trace of dependence on her soul fusion. Ji Dong knew all of this, but it was like a drug addiction. He couldn't shake it off no matter what. Although he still wouldn't accept Chen Xishuan now, he could no longer say those words that would hurt her by rejecting her. Just like how Chen Xishuan had gotten over it, Ji Dong had also gotten over it. "No matter what you do, I'll leave if I don't accept your feelings. 9 years later, I'll go find my flaming bar." In fact, Chen Xishuan didn't know that her pursuit of Ji Dong was very successful. Even if Ji Dong didn't want to admit it, Chen Xishuan's figure had already squeezed into his heart. When this figure appeared in Ji Dong's mind, he had to endure the pain and think about the flaming bar so that he wouldn't think about Chen Xishuan. Based on Ji Dong's deep feelings for the flaming bar, Chen Xishuan was already close to her limit for being able to do this. "I'm leaving." Ji Dong didn't answer Chen Xishuan's words, or rather, he didn't know how to face her. He left quietly, almost like he was fleeing. Looking at his hurried back, Chen Xishuan was stunned for a moment. Was he resisting? What was he resisting? On the official road, a horse carriage sped out of West Causeway City. It only came to a stop after a few miles. "Young master, please bear with it. I'll bring you back to the Chamber of Commerce. As long as you see the chairman, he'll definitely help you recover." The curtain of the horse carriage was lifted, and Chao Yi jumped out with the skeleton-faced Wang Xiaolei in his arms. After dismissing the coachman, he waved his right hand, and a distorted light lit up in front of him. A huge yellow figure emerged from the distorted light. It was a huge earth dragon without wings, and its body was more than 8 meters long. It didn't have the ability to fly, but its limbs were extremely thick. There were 3 long horns on its head, 2 pointing forward and 1 pointing upwards. Its entire body was covered in thick scales, and its tail was unusually long. It was actually more than 10 meters long, and its body was more than 8 meters long. At the tip of its tail was something that looked like an iron ball, and it was covered in cold, shiny spikes. This was a mutant of the earth dragons called the Triceratops. It was one of the most destructive types of earth dragons. Although it was only at the 7th rank, even an ordinary 8th rank magical beast wouldn't be able to break through its powerful defense. In the face of its powerful attacks, they would pale in comparison. Wang Xiaolei's face was as white as paper. He was originally a skeleton, and now his eyes were sunken in. His body was trembling, and he murmured, "Can I still recover? Can I still play with women?" Chao Yi carried Wang Xiaolei up and landed on the back of the Triceratops. He said, "Young master, don't worry. We'll go back as fast as we can. We'll definitely be able to cure him. The chairman is very powerful, and there won't be any problems." Wang Xiaolei's dazed eyes finally regained some luster. He looked at Chao Yi, and his eyes were filled with hatred. "When I get back, I'll definitely make Grandpa kill those people. The men will all be executed by 1,000 cuts, and the women will all be sent to my old home after I'm done playing with them." Chao Yi sighed. It was already very good that he was able to stay alive this time. At that time, it seemed that someone had shouted for mercy, and that was why he was spared. That voice sounded a bit familiar. Chapter 4:15. As it turned out, Ji Dong and the others had already left by the time they had woken up after being heavily injured in the hotel. Wang Xiaolei didn't even have the strength to be angry. He had only managed to survive with the help of the hotel's medical staff. Chao Yi knew very well how terrifying Ji Dong and the others were, so he didn't dare to stay for long. In order to get Wang Xiaolei's heavy injuries treated as soon as possible, they had set off through the night. Wang Xiaolei glanced at Chao Yi's mount. The Triceratops was excellent in both offense and defense, but it had one problem: it was slow. Although it was still faster than a galloping horse, it was only faster than a galloping horse. Wang Xiaolei couldn't help but become furious. He said, "Who knows when you'll be able to return to the Chamber of Commerce with this crappy mount of yours? Hurry up and think of something else. If we go back at this speed, my baby won't be able to recover." Chao Yi felt depressed. It was so difficult to be a slave. He said, "Young master, please bear with it a little longer. I'll do my best to go faster. There's really no place to find a flying mount right now. My brothers are all dead." At that moment, the Triceratops' huge body suddenly trembled. It came to a stop and raised its head to look at the sky. Chao Yi and his mount were connected, so he immediately felt that something was wrong. He also raised his head to look at the sky. The sky was still pitch black. He couldn't see anything, but he suddenly felt that the air had become heavy. "Bastard, why isn't your shitty mount running anymore?" Although Wang Xiaolei didn't have much strength, he was still as arrogant as before when he scolded people. Not only had he not learned his lesson, but his heart was filled with even more hatred. Chao Yi's expression became even uglier. This time, he surprisingly ignored Wang Xiaolei. Instead, he constantly patted the back of the Triceratops in an attempt to comfort his mount companion. However, the Triceratops' body seemed to be out of control. It constantly trembled. This Class 7 magical beast, which had always been known for its rough nature, was actually so afraid. Chao Yi knew that he had most likely encountered an enemy that he couldn't fight against. The clouds in the sky suddenly dispersed, and a strange creature suddenly appeared in the air. A deep dragon's roar rang out, and the Triceratops' thick limbs went limp at the same time. It suddenly fell to the ground, as if it didn't even have the slightest thought of fighting back. "What is this?" Chao Yi's eyes widened as he looked at the black and white beast with two huge heads in the sky. The terrifying pressure made it difficult for him to even breathe. He desperately urged his mana, but there was a sharp pain in his chest and abdomen. The injuries he suffered during the day were still far from recovering. Without a doubt, the thing that had suddenly appeared in front of Chao Yi and Wang Xiaolei was Ji Dong's Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon. This was also the reason why he had gone to find Chen Xishuan. The Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon circled in the air, looking at Chao Yi and Wang Xiaolei with disdain. When Wang Xiaolei saw it, his body began to tremble. His lower body, which was already in pain, trembled even more painfully. It was as if his wound was going to burst open again. "Chao Yi, save me! Save me! As long as you can save me, I'll get my grandfather to give you a divine artifact when we get back. He'll definitely give you a divine artifact." For the first time in his life, Wang Xiaolei felt the aura of death. Although he was a spoiled brat, he was no fool. He could naturally tell that the Sacred Evolution Fire Dragon had come for them. Mao Tai and Wu Yangye raised their heads high. Black and gold, two different colored breaths were spat out from their huge dragon heads. The two huge breaths merged in the air and turned into a huge ball of light before descending from the sky. Fight? Even if Chao Yi had recovered from his injuries, how could he fight against a 9th-grade super magical beast that possessed the ultimate dual flames? Even Fury, the Thunder Emperor, would not be able to do it, let alone him. Ji Dong and Fury were evenly matched in a one-on-one battle, but if Fury's mount was added to the equation, Fury would definitely lose. After the sacred evolution fire dragon reached the 9th grade, its cultivation was extremely close to that of an ordinary 9-crowned supremacy. This was also why Ji Dong did not borrow its power. It was too powerful, and frequently borrowing the power of Mao Tai and Wuliangye was not beneficial to Ji Dong's own cultivation. After each of them spat out their breaths, Mao Tai and Wuliangye did not even look down. Their huge bodies swayed slightly, and they disappeared into the clouds once again. All that was left for the ground was to be obliterated. In every corner of West Causeway City, one could hear that violent explosion. Let alone a trace, not even a speck of dust was left. Chao Yi, his mount, and the skeleton-faced Wang Xiaolei had all silently disappeared forever under the bombardment of the ultimate dual flames. Ji Dong, who was sitting on the bed, slowly opened his eyes. He glanced in the direction of the sound outside the city, and 2 words rose up in his mind: evil must be eradicated. He did not agree with Zhou Xiaoxiao's words. Could this skeleton-faced Wang Xiaolei still live after committing so many crimes just because he was the grandson of a foolish rich chairman of the Chamber of Commerce? Losing the ability of a man did not mean that he would not commit evil in the future. On the contrary, this kind of person might even become worse. No matter what, in Ji Dong's heart, there was no reason for such a scum to live. That was why he had sent the sacred evolution fire dragon behind Zhou Xiaoxiao's back. He did not want to make things difficult for Zhou Xiaoxiao, but he would definitely not let Wang Xiaolei off. In another room, Zhou Xiaoxiao was also awakened by the rumble. His first reaction was to release his soul power to sense the situation of the heavenly stem saint. When he sensed that everyone was quietly cultivating in their own rooms, he let out a sigh of relief. In his opinion, Wang Xiaolei had the 8-crowned Chao Yi by his side. As long as they did not encounter the heavenly stem saints, they would have no problem protecting themselves. Naturally, he would not think of anything else. In her room, Chen Xishuan was also looking in the direction of the rumbling. At this moment, she already understood why Ji Dong came to her room. She couldn't help but smile. She would support Ji Dong unconditionally no matter what he did. Moreover, she liked Ji Dong's abhorrence of evil as if it was his mortal enemy. Somewhere in the capital of West Jin Empire, Jin City, an old man who was sitting on his bed looking at an account book suddenly trembled. His ruddy face suddenly turned pale. He abruptly stood up and looked towards the east. Trembling, he said, "Xiaolei, how could you? How could the life seed that Grandpa left in your body disappear? Not good, something must have happened to Xiaolei." Come. The old man's expression instantly became fierce as he roared loudly. "Chrysanthemum Pig, come to my room. I have something to discuss with you." Ji Dong stood outside Du Xin's room and said. Chrysanthemum Pig, that wretched fellow, had stuck to Du Xin and insisted on staying in the same room with her. Du Xin was also happy to be intimate with this cute pig. "What?" Chrysanthemum Pig angrily jumped out of the room and looked unwillingly at Ji Dong. He jumped up and landed on Ji Dong's shoulder. Ji Dong said, "I want to talk to you alone. Let's go to my room." Chrysanthemum Pig snorted and didn't object. Today, Ji Dong's almost complete version of gigantic serene flame ice still left a shadow in its heart. Ji Dong took Chrysanthemum Pig to his room and closed the door. Chrysanthemum Pig directly jumped onto Ji Dong's bed and turned around, lying on its stomach. It blinked its small eyes and looked at Ji Dong. "Why did you call me here?" Ji Dong said, "Chrysanthemum Pig, I should call you Senior. After all, you are one of the 5 holy beasts of the Holy Evil Island. I don't know how long you have lived and how powerful you are. However, I don't want to call you that. Since we met you and you signed the contract with Yao Qianshu, we have always regarded you as a friend. That's why we just call you Chrysanthemum Pig." Hearing Ji Dong's words, Chrysanthemum Pig's lazy eyes became a bit more restrained. Obviously, it didn't expect that Ji Dong would talk to it so seriously. Ji Dong, I have always regarded you as a friend. Why are you saying this? We have a tacit understanding, Chrysanthemum Pig said naturally. Ji Dong shook his head and said, No, in my opinion, it's not like that. You don't seem to regard us as real friends. Chrysanthemum Pig was stunned at first, then it became angry and said, Bullshit! Didn't I do my best to protect you in the Holy Evil Island? Why don't I regard you as friends? Ji Dong said, It's okay for the rest of us, but Chrysanthemum Pig, have you ever thought about Qianshu's feelings? Ever since you made the contract with him, have you ever fought alongside him against an enemy? Have you ever become a real partner with him? Even when we're together, you're only with Xian. I know that you and Qianshu have an equal contract, and no one can restrict the other. However, what you're doing now is unfair to Qianshu. That's right, it sounds like he has a holy beast like you as his magical beast companion, which is something that no one else can compare to, let alone surpass. However, is this really a good thing for Qianshu? Apart from eating him until he is almost begging for food and constantly torturing him, what have you done for him? Since we are partners, we should help each other. Chrysanthemum Pig snorted and the anger in its eyes gradually dissipated. It said, Didn't I just eat a little of his food? Ji Dong said in a deep voice, Did you eat a little? I knew Qianshu a lot earlier than you. I know very well what kind of person he is. As a magic master of the First Wood series, when I knew him, he was still a doctor in Tianji City. At that time, he had already created a quite good reputation. He was known as medicine cures fatal diseases, money helps the fated people. His name, Yao Qianshu, was jokingly called by me as a money tree. It can be seen how much he loves money. However, after you sign the contract, he is willing to spend all his savings for you. Yes, I admit that he hopes to get your help. However, for a person like him who values money so much, he can spend all his money for you. Isn't that not enough to prove his sincerity to you? You signed an equal contract. He can't ask for anything from you. We treat you as a friend and don't want to force you to do anything. He has no money to provide food and shelter for you now. Didn't Zhou Xiaoxiao, that fatty, promise to make sure you eat and drink your fill? Then, please let Qianshu go. I know that you must have the ability to cancel the contract with him. We don't want to talk about the past anymore. If you are willing to be our friend in the future, we welcome you. Otherwise, we will go our separate ways and have nothing to do with each other. Hearing Ji Dong's words, Chrysanthemum Pig couldn't help but be a little stunned. It never thought that as a holy beast, it would be driven away by someone. It had always felt that it had an extremely aloof identity and no one could compare with it. After all, apart from the flaming bar, there was no one else in this world that could be higher than it. Living on the Five-Saint Mountain of the Holy Evil Island, it was naturally extremely self-centered. When it signed the contract with Yao Qianshu, it was purely hoping to use Yao Qianshu to take it away from the Holy Evil Island and go outside to play. After a few years of getting along with it, just as Ji Dong said, it was Yao Qianshu who tried his best to satisfy its terrible appetite, but it had never done anything for Yao Qianshu. The battle during the day made Chrysanthemum Pig understand that it was not invincible in this world. At this time, although Ji Dong's words were not harsh, the unapproachable expression in his words was clearly telling it that if it left, the heavenly stem saints would not want to have anything to do with it anymore. Chrysanthemum Pig really didn't understand why. Didn't they want to have a saint-level wood saint to assist them? Looking at Chrysanthemum Pig's dull expression, Ji Dong continued, Thank you for reminding me about the flaming bar today, but my feelings for the flaming bar are probably not what you can imagine. Chrysanthemum Pig, we heavenly stem saints are one. Qianshu is my brother, and I can't watch him suffer like this anymore. Soon, I will lead my companions to look for a suitable companion to ride on. So, I hope you can let him go. Do you know? Even an ordinary Class 6 magical beast would be of more help to Qianshu than you. What we need is a companion that we can entrust our defenseless backs to, not a manipulator. Even if you're a saint-level saint, it's meaningless to us. Looking at Ji Dong, Chrysanthemum Pig's eyes became much gloomier. He said, "Why didn't Yao Qianshu come and talk to me himself?" Ji Dong said indifferently, "After all, we made a contract. He's actually a very sentimental person." Chrysanthemum Pig said in a low voice, "You really don't want me as a companion?" Chapter 4:16. Chrysanthemum Pig said in a deep voice, "You really don't want me as your partner?" Ji Dong looked at it calmly and said, "I only hope that you can give Qianshu freedom. At the same time, I also hope that you understand that we don't need to rely on you for anything, nor do we plan to get any benefits from you." Chrysanthemum Pig suddenly stood up and jumped off Ji Dong's bed. "I will give you an answer." Then it walked away with a gloomy face. Looking at the door, Ji Dong's eyes revealed a thoughtful light. He had long seen that there was a problem between Yao Qianshu and the Chrysanthemum Pig. For this matter, he was the most suitable person to come forward and solve it. Of course, he also knew that the Chrysanthemum Pig's nature was good, but it was too self-centered. Because it was a holy beast, everyone spoiled it, and it had developed a supercilious and self-centered habit. He called the Chrysanthemum Pig to say these words, not only for Yao Qianshu, but also for the Chrysanthemum Pig itself. Closing the door, Ji Dong sat cross-legged on the bed and circulated the magic power in his body. His soul and magic power intertwined, and he quickly entered a meditative state. After his magic power broke through to the seventh crown, his own soul power and magic power had been perfectly fused together, especially the mutual conversion of the ultimate dual fire. Although his cultivation speed was not as fast as before, it was very solid. Every time he cultivated, he could improve a little. Ji Dong knew that his cultivation had entered a stable period, and he had to gradually improve it step by step. After the matter of the foolish rich merchant guild and the problem of everyone's mounts was solved, he had already thought about it. It was time to lead everyone into seclusion for a period of time. With the help of the 5 elements cycle formation, everyone's cultivation would definitely improve faster. As for how to deal with the 5 elements continent, after leaving the holy evil island this time, Ji Dong already had some ideas. The next morning, the news spread in West Causeway City that a meteor fell from the sky last night and hit the official road outside the city. Many people felt lucky that the meteor didn't fall inside the city. Of course, the heavenly stem saints and Zhou Xiaoxiao didn't see the meteor that hit the ground. After leaving the city, they immediately rode their magic beasts to the sky. Without delay, they went straight to the capital of West Jin Empire, Gold City. After flying for a few days, they finally arrived at Gold City. Without any delay, Zhou Xiaoxiao brought everyone to the headquarters of the foolish rich Chamber of Commerce. Those who had never been to Jin City would not understand how powerful the foolish rich Chamber of Commerce was, nor would they understand how much the West Jin Empire depended on the foolish rich Chamber of Commerce. Although Jin City was not as big as Zhongyuan City, as the capital, it was 1/3 the size of Zhongyuan City. After entering the city, Zhou Xiaoxiao's words stunned everyone. "Do you see the square in front? That's the Imperial Palace. The Imperial Palace is located in the center of Jin City. The western side of Jin City belongs to our foolish rich merchant guild. That's why we're also called Foolish Banqing." Everyone saw the palace. There was no doubt that it was a stretch of towering buildings. The problem was that on the west side of the palace they also saw a huge building complex that was even more undulating. It was only slightly less towering, but it continued all the way to the west. In front of this building complex, there was a huge gate tower that was not inferior to the main gate of the palace at all. On top of it there were 3 words stamped in gold: "Stupidly rich." Stupidly rich, it was really extraordinarily rich. This was the only thought in everyone's mind at this time. Being able to occupy half of the area of the capital of a country, it showed a lot of problems. Before Zhou Xiaoxiao arrived at the gate, some people came to greet her. They were all dressed in the golden uniform of the foolish rich Chamber of Commerce. They came to Zhou Xiaoxiao respectfully. Some of them carried a special box, took out hot towels from it, and handed them to everyone respectfully. It was absolutely a very comfortable thing to wipe their faces with the hot towels with a faint fragrance. Moreover, these people in the Chamber of Commerce turned a blind eye to the stunning beauties of these women. After receiving the towels, they immediately retreated to the side. Zhou Xiaoxiao seemed to have changed into another person. She put her hands behind her back and stuck out her big belly. Her fat face was very dignified. She said, "Go and arrange a place for the distinguished guests. Inform the council that I have brought my successor back. The assessment will be held tomorrow morning." "Yes, Mr. President." After the order was given, someone immediately went to arrange it. Entering the foolish half-city of the foolish rich Chamber of Commerce gave people an even more shocking feeling. Everyone seemed to know Zhou Xiaoxiao. As long as they saw him, they all retreated to the side and bowed. All the shops in foolish half-city were like this. Their accommodations were quickly arranged. They lived in the center of foolish half-city, in a row of fine houses. Everyone had their own room. This place didn't look very high, it was just a bungalow. However, after entering, it was a completely different world. Every fine house was very exquisite. There was a pair of twin girls serving as maids. There were 2 rooms, one inside and one on the side. The one on the side was specially for the twins. The main room was over 100 square meters. The decorations were very exquisite. The heavenly stem saints didn't know what was used in these decorations, but it was different from the foolish rich hotel. It didn't look luxurious, but it gave people a feeling of elegance and depth. Every decoration inside was an antique. The inner room was the resting area. The first thing that came into view was a super large bed. This bed was called a bagbu bed. In other words, the bed needed to be entered first. It was made of solid wood. Just this bed alone was already like a small room. Walking through the window, there were wooden pillars and chairs that looked like pavilions on both sides. Further inside, there were curtains and a large bed. Just this bagbu bed alone took up half of the space in the inner room. "Ji Dong, everyone rest first. I will go to the council to arrange the assessment." After saying that, Fatty was about to leave. With a flash of golden light, Ajin stood in front of Zhou Xiaoxiao and said, "Wait a moment. Take these maids away. We don't need anyone to serve us." Zhou Xiaoxiao chuckled and said, "Isn't it good to have someone to serve us? The maids here have all gone through special training." Ajin snorted coldly. Beside him, Meow Meow also said, "Fatty, don't lead these men astray. I don't want to hear anything I shouldn't hear at night." Fatty chuckled and said, all right, I'll let them go. What a pity." As he said that, he deliberately swept his gaze across the faces of Ji Dong, Fury, and the others. Ji Dong and Fury didn't mind, but Lang Tianyi and Du Ming's faces turned red. After all, they still didn't have much contact with the outside world, so they naturally felt a little embarrassed by Zhou Xiaoxiao's hint. The twin maids left in the end, avoiding a lot of awkwardness. Everyone didn't return to their respective rooms to rest. Instead, they gathered in the courtyard in front of the fine house. There was a pavilion in the courtyard, and everyone sat together. Surprisingly, the chrysanthemum pig didn't stay in Du Xian's arms. Instead, he squatted in the corner with a gloomy expression. "Ji Dong, do you really want to inherit the position of the chairman of this foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce?" The first to speak was Fury. He was Ji Dong's senior brother and had a considerable say in the Heavenly Stem Holy Disciples. Ji Dong nodded and said, "I've been entrusted with a task, so I'll be loyal to it. Since I've promised Zhou Xiaoxiao, I won't change my mind." Senior brother, you know how important those bottles of wine are to me. If Zhou Xiaoxiao didn't take them out, I'm afraid it would be very difficult for me to find them within 10 years. I can't take the risk because I don't want to disappoint the flaming bar. Fury said, but you should also know that although this foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce is really rich, there are also complicated relationships within it. If you're not careful, you'll be dragged into it. Ji Dong smiled indifferently and said, I've considered this point and discussed it with Fatty. He promised me that as long as I can pass this assessment, I'll be able to have my name in the foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce. As for what will happen in the future, who knows? Senior brother, you should know my decision after 9 years. After listening to Ji Dong's last sentence, Fury couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. His gaze changed, and he looked at Chen Xishuan, who was still wearing a veil. He sighed and didn't say anything else. Yao Qianshu said, This foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce has a lot of resources and influence in the West Jin Empire. I think it's a good thing that Ji Dong can become the successor of this Chamber of Commerce. It can save us a lot of time. Tianji smiled and said, No matter what Master's decision is, I will support it unconditionally. However, there might be some changes in this assessment. Last night, when I looked at the sky, I could see an opportunity in the midst of danger. Although there is danger, there is no bloodshed. I believe this will only be a good thing for the Heavenly Stem Holy Disciples. Tianji's position in the Heavenly Stem Holy Disciples had always been superior. Yun Tianji rarely made predictions, but everyone believed what he said. Moreover, among these people, how many would doubt Ji Dong's decision? The only one who could really influence Ji Dong's decision was probably Fury. Even he was convinced by Ji Dong. The others naturally wouldn't say anything. Miao Miao said, Ji Dong, if you become the successor of the foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce, will your elders have doubts? Ji Dong said, I will explain to them. Becoming the successor of the Chamber of Commerce doesn't mean that I will do anything for the foolish Chamber of Commerce. Fatty only cares about my reputation. Fury said, In that case, everyone should rest early. This matter has been decided, so we should do our best to help Ji Dong pass this assessment. No matter how difficult the assessment of this foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce is, can it be more difficult than Chrysanthemum Pig and Zhou Xiaoxiao working together? Strong confidence spread from Thunder Emperor, and at the same time, it also touched everyone. Just as he said, in the Radiant Five Elements continent, there was no problem that could be difficult for them. Wait a minute. At this moment, Chrysanthemum Pig, who had been drawing circles in the corner, suddenly jumped up and landed on the table in the pavilion. He looked at Yao Qianshu and said, The rest of you can leave. Yao Qianshu, you stay. I have something to say to you. Yao Qianshu was stunned and subconsciously looked at Hyoheim. He happened to see Ji Dong nod at him. Most of the others were puzzled, but only a few people vaguely guessed something. Ji Dong gave Yao Qianshu an encouraging look, and led everyone back to their houses. An hour later, there was a knock on Ji Dong's door. Qianshu, come in. The door is not locked. The door opened and Yao Qianshu walked in. It was obvious that there was some joy on his face, but also some disappointment. Chrysanthemum Pig left? Ji Dong asked. Yao Qianshu nodded and said, It's gone. I don't know why, but I can't feel happy at all, even though I should be happy that I've regained the power of my contract. Even though it's been oppressing me all these years, when it's really gone, it's like I've lost something precious. Ji Dong stood up and came before Yao Qianshu. He patted him on the shoulder and said, Don't think too much. Actually, Chrysanthemum Pig has a good nature. It's just that it's too self-centered. I hope that the blow this time will make it realize its mistake. Furthermore, there's another reason why I chased it away like this. You'll understand in the future. Yao Qianshu said somewhat helplessly, Ji Dong, I'm obviously older than you, but why do I feel like you're my elder when we're together? Ji Dong was stunned for a moment, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He thought to himself, I've lived 2 lives. In terms of real age, I'm old enough to be your elder. Ji-dong said, since the contract has been dissolved, you should find a magical beast partner that's suitable for you. Yao Qianshu nodded and said, Ji-dong, before Chrysanthemum Pig left, it spat something out of its mouth and said that it wouldn't owe me anything. Then it left. Help me see what this is. As he spoke, he took out a green bead from his storage magic tool and presented it in front of Ji-dong. It was a green bead without any magical undulations. It was no wonder that Yao Qianshu didn't know what it was. It didn't have any magical undulations at all, and it felt like an ordinary glass bead. Ji-dong received the bead, and his eyes flickered with silver light. Suddenly, he revealed an obvious expression of astonishment and said, This thing is incredible. Although I don't know what it is, there's one thing I'm sure of. If you want to truly use it, you'll have to comprehend the mysteries of the chaotic wood first. And I don't need to tell you what it is that requires chaotic force to be used as a guide, right? Yao Qianshu received the bead again, but his expression became gloomy. He said, Ji-dong, don't you think we've been too kind to Chrysanthemum Pig? He actually left me such a priceless treasure. Ji-dong smiled and said, All right, you don't need to think too much. He'll still come back in the near future. Even if he doesn't come back for us, he'll still have to think about his brothers, but not now. At this moment, Zhou Xiaoxiao's plump body squeezed in from the outside. The word squeezed was used because his huge body was a bit too grand for the door of the abode. Chapter 4:17. Zhou Xiaoxiao walked into Ji-dong's room. At this moment, Fatty's expression was not very good. He looked at Ji-dong and said, I'm afraid it's a little troublesome. I don't know why that old guy Wang Daojun has gone mad. He actually publicly humiliated me and mobilized the vote of the council to forcefully approve the assessment method for you guys. Even I don't know what they're going to do. However, when I saw this old guy just now, his expression seemed to be a little strange. His expression was extremely ugly. Could it be that he already knows about that little bastard Wang Xiaolei? But he shouldn't know that it was us who did it. Wang Xiaolei won't be back for a while. If I remember correctly, that brat Chao Yi's mount is an earth dragon that can't fly. He won't be able to rush back without at least 10 days or half a month. Ji-dong glanced at him and said, What's the hurry? We'll deal with it when it comes. No matter what the assessment is, I'll take it. Fatty grinned and said, I'm relieved. I have absolute confidence in you. No matter what the assessment is, you must complete it beautifully and embarrass that old bastard Wang Daojun. If it wasn't for the fact that he's from the speaker's faction, I would have ignored him long ago. Alright, you guys rest early. I still have some things to deal with. I'm not that easy to deal with. Although I can't decide what the assessment is as a recommendation, it's not a problem for me to find a few impartial judges. In the morning, after a night of rest, the fatigue from the holy disciples' journey had already disappeared. When Ji-dong walked out of the abode, he found that his companions had already packed up and were waiting for him outside. Everyone had breakfast in the abode. At this moment, no one was nervous at all because Ji-dong was going to face the foolish rich Chamber of Commerce's assessment today. This was a kind of confidence, absolute confidence in Ji-dong. Yao Qianshu was especially energetic. Although the Chrysanthemum Pig's departure made him a little sad, the problem that had been bothering him the most had finally been solved. He was completely relaxed. After a night of cultivation, he faintly felt that his cultivation seemed to be on the verge of a breakthrough again. Ji-dong, after this test is over, teach us the 5 elements coexistence cycle formation. If we can successfully cultivate it, we'll be able to fight against those dark saints, even if they all have God artifact. Hearing Yao Qianshu's words, everyone nodded. It had been a while since everyone had gathered. Although they had been on the road recently, Ji Dong had not shown any intention of cultivating the 5 elements mutual generation and circulation array with everyone else. They understood that this was not because Ji Dong was being selfish. There must be a reason for this. Ji Dong nodded and said, I haven't let everyone start cultivating this formation mainly because I still want to make some improvements to it. After all, although there are 10 of us, there are 11 types of demonic power. I've been thinking about how to integrate Senior Brother's ultimate Yang lightning attribute into this formation system. I have some ideas now. After this test is over, we should be able to start trying it out. Hearing Ji Dong's words, Fury could not help but feel a ripple in his eyes. A strong sense of warmth filled his heart. Although he did not say anything, he had seen the power of the 5 elements coexistence cycle formation with his own eyes. Yet, he was left outside of it. It was not a good feeling. After all, he had always been the absolute leader of the Heavenly STEM Academy. After joining the Heavenly STEM Saints, he was unable to play any role, so he naturally felt a little depressed. Now that he heard Ji Dong's words, he knew that his junior brother had not neglected this problem of his. He had even delayed the cultivation of the 5 elements coexistence cycle formation for his sake. Little junior brother, don't affect everyone because of me, Fury said without hesitation. Ji Dong smiled and said, Senior brother, this is not because you affect everyone. You're an indispensable part of the Heavenly STEM Saint. In terms of strength, you're the strongest. Also, your Hell's Thunder Divine Axe is such a powerful force. Wouldn't it be a waste if we can't add such a powerful force to my formation system? Only by fusing with your power will we become stronger and be able to restrain the dark Heavenly STEM Saint. It can be said that you have always been our trump card. Currently, my idea is to use myself as the core and you as the edge. In other words, I am the brain of the formation, and you are the weapon of the formation. Of course, this still requires many experiments and cultivation before it can be realized. I was able to create the 5 elements cycle formation, so naturally, I can also change it. Yao Qianshu smiled and said, You've always been a creator of miracles. Of course, we believe in you. What miracle did you create this time? Zhou Xiaoxiao walked in from outside. He was still in his gorgeous attire. Before he entered, his fat belly was already sticking out. Can we go now? Ji Dong asked the fatty. Zhou Xiaoxiao nodded and said gloomily, Until now, I still don't know what the test is about. Those bastards actually kept it a secret from me. However, I heard that the test is divided into 3 parts and we have to pass all of them. Today we'll start with the first test. The venue is the training ground in the south of Jincheng. The carriage is ready. Let's go. 3 tests? Is it that troublesome? Ji Dong frowned. Zhou Xiaoxiao said helplessly, After all, if you pass the test, you'll receive the full support of the foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce. You'll also be able to use the 3 divine weapons of the Chamber of Commerce. It'll be strange if they don't make things difficult for you, especially since that old guy Wang Daojun has already secretly given one of the divine weapons to his grandson. This time, I'd like to see how you'll take out that metal divine weapon, the Ring of Destruction, after you pass the test. Hearing the words, Ring of Destruction, everyone's gaze fell on Ah Jin. Now that the divine weapon was with her, Ah Jin's destructive power was already strong enough. With the addition of a divine weapon named Ring of Destruction, it could only be described as terrifying. The carriage outside had already been prepared. To everyone's surprise, there was only one carriage. It was an incomparably large carriage that required 8 large horses to pull. The carriage was 7 meters long and 3 meters wide. The 6 huge wheels and the carriage were all equipped with thick springs. Although the wheels didn't have the rubber from Ji Dong's previous world, they were wrapped in the skin of some unknown magical beast. They looked extremely heavy. The carriage was completely golden, as if it had been wrapped in a layer of gold leaf. The logo of the foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce was extremely obvious on both sides of the carriage. There were also 20 guards on each side of the carriage. These guards were also riding on tall horses. With the cultivation of the heavenly stem saints, they could naturally see that these guards were at least 4 crowns or higher. This was the foundation. From everything that the foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce had shown, not only were they rich enough to rival a country, their strength was definitely not inferior to any country. It was just that they didn't know if they had a real army. After boarding the carriage, the first thing everyone felt was comfort. The interior of the carriage was completely covered with white fur. Whether it was the roof, the walls, the seats, or the legs, it was just that. The soft fur was 3 inches long. It was soft and comfortable to step on. There was even a long table inside. The table was carved out of jade and looked magnificent. There were fruits, desserts, and some drinks on it. One had to take off their shoes before boarding the carriage. As soon as they boarded the carriage, Du Exien couldn't help but say, "Luxurious, this is too luxurious. But this fur is so comfortable." As she spoke, she was already leaning on the side. It was clear that she liked the comfort of the carriage very much. Although there were a total of 12 people including Yun Tianji and Zhou Xiaoxiao, sitting in the spacious carriage didn't feel the slightest bit cramped. As soon as they boarded the carriage, Ji Dong closed his eyes. He didn't have any intention of appreciating the luxury of the carriage. He closed his eyes to rest and let himself be in his best condition. This didn't mean that he attached much importance to the test, but that he could be in his best condition at any time. Chen Xishuan sat quietly next to Ji Dong. No one would compete with her for this position. Since Jin's attitude toward Chen Xishuan had changed, no one would question her relationship with Ji Dong. Everyone could see her affection for Ji Dong. However, no one could persuade Ji Dong about this matter. With Zhou Xiaoxiao's order, the carriage moved toward the south of the city. The carriage moved forward very steadily. They didn't feel any bumps, and the speed was very fast. Obviously, the 8 horses were also carefully selected. Moreover, the sound insulation inside the carriage was very good. It filtered most of the sounds outside. The comfortable environment could easily intoxicate people. After all, Jin City wasn't as big as Zhongyuan City. About an hour later, the carriage stopped. Zhou Xiaoxiao said, "We're here." After saying that, she led everyone out of the carriage one by one. Ji Dong was the last one to come out. When he stopped resting and opened his eyes, the inside of the carriage was clearly lit up. It was the light from Ji Dong's eyes. Although it only appeared for a moment, everyone couldn't help but look at him. After they got out of the carriage, a huge open space appeared in front of them. The ordinary land gave people a sense of solemnity. Obviously, this was the drill ground in the south of the city. Next to the place where the carriage stopped was a large platform. There were dozens of people sitting on the platform, and there were hundreds of guards around them. It was very strict. Ji Dong raised his head and looked at the platform. His eyes first fell on an old man sitting in the center. This old man seemed to be about 60 years old. His eyebrows were somewhat similar to Wang Xiaolei's. He also had a long and thin face, but not as exaggerated as Wang Xiaolei's. His eyes were gloomy, and there was a faint flash of cold lightning in them. His eyes fell on Ji Dong and the others. Zhou Xiaoxiao's voice sounded in Ji Dong's ears. "That's the old guy Wang Daojun. The people sitting on the platform are all members of the council." As he said that, the people on the platform stood up and came over. Of course, they weren't here to welcome Ji Dong and the others. In their eyes, Ji Dong was no different from ordinary people before he became the successor of the president of the Chamber of Commerce. However, they couldn't be rude to the president, Zhou Xiaoxiao, even if it was Wang Daojun. Wang Daojun walked in the front, and the others were clearly divided into 2 camps. One group walked behind Wang Daojun, and the other group walked separately. Following closely behind Wang Daojun was a middle-aged man with a long and thin figure. However, from his eyes, it could be seen that this person was not as young as he looked. Zhou Xiaoxiao's chubby face was full of smiles. In Ji Dong's eyes, it was somewhat hypocritical. Zhou Xiaoxiao said, "Chairman Wang, I've brought the person. The assessment is up to you. Come, Ji Dong, let me introduce you. This is Chairman Wang Daojun of our foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce." Wang Daojun's gloomy eyes fell on Ji Dong. He nodded to him and said coldly, "Chairman, the assessment of your successor is not my opinion alone. It is the collective opinion of the entire council." Zhou Xiaoxiao seemed to have long been used to his way of speaking. The smile on his chubby face did not diminish. He said, "No matter whose opinion it is, it has nothing to do with me. I only have the right to make suggestions." Wang Daojun then said to Hyoheim, "Young man, I hope you can pass this assessment." Ji Dong smiled and said, "I will try my best." The skinny middle-aged man next to Wang Daojun walked over. Hyoheim smiled and nodded. His attitude was much friendlier. He said, "I have heard of Mr. Ji Dong's name for a long time. Now that I have met you today, I am surprised to see you so young. I am Lone Bamboo Rain Sword." Ji Dong's eyes moved, and his smile became more genuine. He said, "Hello, Lord Fox Bamboo." This person was the vice-chairman of the foolishly rich Chamber of Commerce. He was another elder who had joined the Evil Master Union in the West Jin Kingdom. Clearly, he was on the same level as Zhou Xiaoxiao. He was a Xin Jin family's strongest. Although he was not as strong as the chubby man, he was still a Xin Jin family's strongest. It seemed that Ji Dong and the others would have a hard time fighting him one-on-one. Lone Bamboo Rain Sword said, "I trust Chairman Zhou's judgment. If Mr. Ji Dong does not mind, you can just call me by my name." "No, thank you." Ji Dong nodded to Lone Bamboo Rain Sword. Wang Daojun stood there with a poker face. There was no change in his emotions. Zhou Xiaoxiao said, "Chairman Wang, can you tell me what the assessment is about now? I can't change anything." Wang Daojun nodded and said, "Of course. The first assessment is about to begin. The assessment is simple. It can be summed up in one word: survival." "Survival?" Zhou Xiaoxiao was shocked. Wang Daojun raised his hand and pointed. Everyone turned around and looked in the direction he was pointing. The drill ground was used for the training of the soldiers stationed in Jin City. The terrain was extremely open and the area was vast. At this moment, looking into the distance, one could see an army quickly approaching. Chapter 4:18. Following Wang Daojun's finger, a group of soldiers approached the drill grounds. There were roughly 1,000 soldiers in the group, and they were in an orderly formation. Although they were still very far away, they gave off an intimidating aura. Ji Dong squinted his eyes when he saw this group of soldiers. His sixth sense was stronger than ordinary people's, not to mention that his soul force was so powerful. He could see it clearly before anyone else could. It was an army of 1,000 people, marching forward in a horizontal formation. This was not a simple army, because every soldier was riding on a dragon. Among the Earth Dragons, the one with the most balanced offensive and defensive abilities, Metal Dragons. In terms of grade, the Metal Dragons were not inferior to the Diamond Core's Earth-Shattering Dragons. They might not be as good as the Earth-Shattering Dragons in terms of defense, but they were superior in terms of attack. Ordinary Metal Dragons were Class 5 magical beasts. They were roughly 5 meters long and 3 meters tall, and their bodies were covered in tough, metallic scales. Not only were they extremely fast, but they were also persistent. They would charge at the front lines, using their sharp claws and fangs to tear their opponents to pieces. They could not fly, but they could use their mana to shoot metal spikes to attack their enemies. They were extremely balanced in both close combat and ranged combat. Every single person in this army was riding a metal dragon like this. They formed an orderly formation, which naturally gave off a different feeling. Furthermore, every 10 people had an exceptionally large metal dragon at the very front. This was a Class 6 metal dragon that had evolved once. Every 100 people had an even larger metal dragon king, which was over 8 meters long and covered in silver scales. The metal dragon king was a Class 8 magical beast. It was extremely powerful, and the strength of the soldiers riding on it could be imagined. At the very front of this army was a 15-meter-long dragon with a pair of wings. The highest level of Earth dragons was the Class 8. Class 8 Earth dragons were the kings of Earth dragons. Only an extremely small number of mutated Earth dragons could break through to Class 9, such as the Lightning Fire Earth dragon that Ji Dong and Fury had encountered on the Evil Saint Island. The colossal dragon standing proudly at the front of the group was not an Earth dragon. It was a true colossal dragon with a noble bloodline. It was the master of metal energy, the Gold Evil Dragon. Without a doubt, this Gold Evil Dragon was the representative of the metal element giant dragon clan. Its 15-meter-long body showed that it was already an adult giant dragon. Although its cultivation had yet to break through to the realm of a level 10 divine beast, it had already reached the peak of the level 9, and it was possible for it to break through at any time. The army led by the Gold Evil Dragons had a total of 1,111 people. The armor on the warriors was the same color as the scales of the metal dragons they were riding on. The warriors riding on the ash-gray metal dragons had iron-colored armor, and it was the same for the warriors riding on the evolved metal dragons. As for the 10 warriors that were 70% metal dragon kings, their armor was naturally silver. The warriors riding on the backs of the Gold Evil Dragons were clad in golden armor, looking indescribably noble and lofty. Golden Thug Army? Speaker Wang, what do you mean? Zhou Xiaoxiao looked at Wang Daojun in surprise. With his cultivation of 9 crowns, he could naturally tell who the newcomer was. Wang Daojun said calmly, when the president came back, his evaluation of Mr. Ji Dong was that Mr. Ji Dong already had the strength to fight against you for a period of time. To be able to fight against a supreme being powerhouse like you who possesses primal chaos gold and has mana as high as level 96, you can imagine Mr. Ji Dong's strength. Our Chamber of Commerce doesn't have anyone with a higher cultivation base than the president. Therefore, I invited a 1,000-man team from the Gold Thug Army. The first test is to test Mr. Ji Dong's ability to survive. It's very simple. As long as Mr. Ji Dong can survive for an hour under the siege of the 1,000-man Gold Thug Army, he'll pass the test. During this period, he's not allowed to borrow the strength of his mount or kill any of the Gold Thug Army's soldiers or their mounts. Wang Daojun, don't go overboard. Zhou Xiaoxiao was furious after listening to Speaker Wang's words. Wang Daojun glanced at him coldly and said, President, please watch your words. According to the rules passed down from our ancestors, the president will recommend the candidate. However, the test method is decided by the council. This is a decision made by all of us. If the president thinks that Mr. Ji Dong is not capable of passing the test, you don't have to go through with it. Bullsh**t. Zhou Xiaoxiao said angrily. Is this an ordinary team of the Golden Thug Army? An ordinary troop is led by a Gold Thug Martial God and 10 Gold Thug Martial Generals. However, this troop of yours has gathered all the elites of the Gold Thug Army. There are 1,000 ordinary Gold Thug soldiers, 100 Gold Thug Martial Generals, 10 Gold Thug Martial Gods, and the Gold Thug King, the Gold Thug Army Commander, White Grass. Even I might not be able to defeat them. Is this a test? 1 hour and you're not even allowed to use your mounts. You're obviously making things difficult for him. In the face of Zhou Xiaoxiao's questioning, Wang Daojun did not say anything else. He placed his hands behind his back and lifted his head to look in the direction of the drill ground, ignoring Zhou Xiaoxiao. I accept. Right at that moment, Ji Dong's voice was heard. It was simple and straightforward. Ji Dong, this test is. Yao Qianshu, who was standing next to Ji Dong, said softly. Ji Dong shook his head and said calmly, On the path of cultivation, The best way to break through is to continuously challenge one's own limits. It's only 1,000 people. What's the point? President Wang, you can start the timer. As he spoke, he leaped into the air and landed on the drill ground. Wang Daojun could not help but reveal a trace of surprise on his face. Although he knew that Zhou Xiaoxiao's people would not admit defeat so easily, he did not expect Ji Dong to agree so readily. He almost did not hesitate to agree to this almost impossible test. When Zhou Xiaoxiao saw Ji Dong heading for the drill ground, she said angrily, "Wang Daojun, I really want to know what the next 2 tests are." Although the test he had accepted was also extremely difficult, all 3 tests combined were only equivalent to Ji Dong's test. Although he had guessed that Wang Daojun would definitely make arrangements, he did not expect it to be so difficult. He could imagine that the next 2 tests would not be as easy as this one. Wang Daojun said in a low voice, "President, please control your emotions. Don't forget that this test determines the future of the Chamber of Commerce for the next 100 years. It also decides whether the Chamber of Commerce can borrow the 3 divine artifacts. The Council has to be cautious. Without absolute strength and perseverance, how can he get the full support of the Chamber of Commerce and the assistance of the divine artifacts?" Although Zhou Xiaoxiao was angry, he had to admit that Wang Daojun's words made sense. After all, Ji Dong was just an outsider introduced by him. Apart from him, no one in the Chamber of Commerce knew Ji Dong. If he wanted the Chamber of Commerce to support him unreservedly and lend him the divine artifacts, he had to show his strength in front of the Council and prove it with his own strength. This was why the Council finally passed Wang Daojun's proposal and implemented such a difficult test for Ji Dong. Even the members of the Council who supported Zhou Xiaoxiao agreed. The successor of the president was very important. It was related to the development of the Chamber of Commerce for the next 100 years. It involved the interests of every member of the Chamber of Commerce. How could they not be cautious? Start the countdown. Seeing that Zhou Xiaoxiao was silent, Wang Daojun ordered his subordinate. Immediately, someone took out a thick stick of incense and lit it. There was a mark of 1 hour on it. At the same time, a ray of colorful light rose from the platform and exploded in midair, turning into a beautiful flower of light. This was an order to the Golden Thug Army. They could start the attack now. Zhou Xiaoxiao looked at the other Heavenly Stem holy disciples beside him and was shocked to find that they were not anxious at all. It was as if the enemy that was about to face was not their comrade. Puzzled, Zhou Xiaoxiao asked Fury, "Why are you guys not anxious at all? You should know that Ji Dong is facing the elites of the Golden Thug Army, the absolute elite. The Golden Thug Army is the #1 army in the entire Shishi Empire. It is as famous as the Diamond Army of the Middle-earth Empire. In terms of actual combat power, it is only second to the Diamond Army. He is only 1 person, and he can't use his mount. He can't hurt the members of the Golden Thug Army. Do you think he can hold out for 1 hour?" Fury laughed and said, "It's just a small matter. If Ji Dong can't even get through this, not to mention the Chamber of Commerce's council, even I, as his senior, won't let him go. Oh right, Fatty, you might not know this, but a few years ago, Ji Dong faced the entire extermination army of the Eastern Wood Empire alone. Do you know what the outcome was? At that time, Ji Dong's cultivation hadn't reached the 6 crowns yet." "I don't remember." Zhou Xiaoxiao was stunned and asked, "What was the outcome?" Fury said, "I heard from Ji Dong that he fought against the extermination army for the sake of the forest demons. In the end, he almost destroyed the extermination army and saved the forest demons. The current Ji Dong can't be compared to him at that time. I have absolute confidence in him." Zhou Xiaoxiao said helplessly, "All right. Even you, the senior, have confidence in him. I have no reason to believe him." Fury said, "I'm curious. You are just a Chamber of Commerce. How can you mobilize the #1 army of the Western Jin Empire? How can you mobilize such an elite army?" Zhou Xiaoxiao said proudly, The Golden Thug Army is supported by our foolish rich Chamber of Commerce. Without our financial support, do you think it's easy for the Western Gene Empire to support such a powerful Earth Dragon army? It's not just the Western Gene Empire. Other than the Central Empire, which has enough money to support the Diamond Army, the #1 army of the other 3 empires is supported by the Chamber of Commerce. To be frank, the status of our foolish rich Chamber of Commerce in the Western Gene Empire is not much lower than the status of the Prince equivalent palace in the Central Empire. While they were talking, Ji-dong was surrounded. When Ji-dong landed on the ground, the Golden Thug Army had already charged in the direction of Ji-dong as fireworks lit up on the general roll call stage. The commander of the Golden Thug Army, White Misty Grass, did not move. He was still sitting on the back of his Golden Thug Dragon. The other members of the Golden Thug Dragon swept past him like 2 torrents of steel and dashed toward Ji-dong. The Golden Thug Army's formation immediately displayed the Golden Thug Army's valiance. The metal dragons, which were huge creatures, did not show any signs of disarray under the command of the Golden Thug Army's warriors. The Metal Dragon Kings charged forward with 5 Golden Thug War Gods at the forefront. Silver spikes slowly protruded from their heads and pointed directly at Ji-dong. The 2 torrents of steel did not charge toward Hyoheim in a straight line. Instead, they made a half circle around each other and formed a huge arc before charging toward Ji-dong. It was as if they were going to tear Ji-dong into pieces in the blink of an eye. Since Zhou Xiaoxiao did not know what the assessment was about, he did not inform the Golden Thug Army about it. He did not know that Wang Daojuan's order to the Golden Thug Army was to kill and not defeat them. Wang Daojun appeared calm on the surface, but he was already close to losing his mind after feeling the death of his grandson. When the 2 torrents of steel began charging toward him, Ji-dong narrowed his eyes in agitation. A faint silver light flickered in his eyes. In an instant, his soul power was fully unleashed. The Golden Thug Army's thunderous charge in other people's eyes was extremely slow to his soul power. Ji-dong slowly raised his hands by his side. The spectators could clearly see a layer of milky white light emerging from his body. Then, a pair of wings suddenly unfurled from his back. The huge wings carried a special aura that made the seemingly weak Ji-dong feel as if he was confronting the Golden Thug Army. Then, a faint layer of red light emerged from the milky white light. The faint light suddenly became stronger and turned into an intense red light that shot into the sky. A layer of dark red armor appeared under the ferocious mask and instantly enveloped Ji-dong's body. It was the Divine Fire Sage King armor. Ji-dong did not even look at the Golden Thug Army's soldiers charging at him. Instead, he lifted his head and looked at the sky. His ferocious dark red mask shone with a strange luster under the sunlight. In an instant, 2 rays of gold and black light rose from his raised hands and soared 10 meters into the sky. Intense dual fire attribute magic was released. With Ji-dong's body as the center, the air within a 100-meter radius began to distort. The Golden Thug Army's soldiers, including their metal dragons, who were charging at Hyoheim with an unstoppable momentum, felt a sense of suffocation. Their initial momentum slowed down, and even their breathing became heavier. Chapter 419. With Ji-dong's current strength, as long as his opponent was not a 9-crown powerhouse who also possessed ultimate demonic power, his attribute suppression would definitely work. In particular, his attribute suppression also included an extremely powerful soul suppression. The effect of the double attribute suppression would not be weakened by the number of enemies. Therefore, the moment the ultimate flame appeared, the powerful double suppression had already burst forth in the air. Moreover, it was completely suppressing. Even the Gold Thug Army's commander, White Grass, who was at the back of the line, also felt the strong pressure. It was important to note that Ji-dong was alone. However, he did not show any signs of cowardice in the face of thousands of troops. Instead, he took the initiative to provoke and suppress the strongest army of the West Gene Empire. What kind of strength and arrogance was this? The foolishly rich members of the Chamber of Commerce, who were watching the battle from the podium, could not help but secretly nod their heads when they saw this scene. He was indeed worthy of being chosen by the president. Perhaps even the president was far less powerful than he was when he took the assessment back then. This young man named Ji Dong was so young. His future was indeed limitless. Zhou Xiaoxiao glared at Wang Daojun. She seemed to be talking to herself, but she said in a loud voice, "Do you see that? This is the ultimate dual fire. Ji Dong has the ultimate dual fire. He's the holy king of this generation of holy disciples. We're already flattering him by making him the president of our Chamber of Commerce. I think he'll become the most powerful 9-crown supreme in the world in less than 20 years. He might even be able to reach the saint level. The saint level is the goal of every holy disciple. The heavenly stem saints might be a secret to ordinary evil masters, but it was nothing to the foolishly rich members of the Chamber of Commerce. They naturally knew about the existence of the heavenly stem saint. Zhou Xiaoxiao had also mentioned Ji Dong's strength when she reported to the Chamber of Commerce about Ji Dong's strength. At this moment, Ji Dong's hands, which were separated from his body, began to close above his head. At this moment, the 2 steel torrents formed by the Gold Thug Army were less than 500 meters away from him after they had slowed down. The glaring golden flames and black flames merged into one above Ji Dong's head. Behind him, the yin-yang fire formation glowed at the same time. Everyone could clearly see that the golden and black light instantly enlarged above Ji Dong's head and turned into a huge ball in the shape of a Tai Chi. The golden light gradually turned white. The black and white light rotated violently. The divine fire Sage King armor on Ji Dong's body and the yin-yang crown that rose above his head were also constantly changing colors due to the changes of magic. It looked magical and a little strange. Everyone's attention was focused on the ball of light. No one knew what Ji Dong was going to do. However, the Gold Thug Army did not stop charging forward. The golden thug war gods that were charging at the front all shone with a dazzling metallic luster. Even though they were being suppressed by Ji Dong's 2 attributes, these predators still tried their best to unleash their strength. 2 steel torrents slashed at Ji Dong like 2 giant blades. Kill! The 10 golden thug war gods roared at the same time. Then, the steel torrents behind them suddenly dispersed. Countless metal spikes that were formed from the top of the metal dragon heads shot out at lightning speed towards Ji Dong. Their only target was him. One must not forget that the metal dragons were not only experts in close-range combat, but they were also very good at long-range combat. At that moment, Ji Dong swung his hands that were folded above his head. To everyone's surprise, he did not seem to be charging at the 2 metal torrents formed by the Golden Thug Army. Instead, he was aiming at the ground. A fulcrum appeared where his hands were folded. The fulcrum extended to both sides and formed a triangular halo. All the black and white light gathered on the triangle. As Ji Dong swung his hands down, the intense dual flames were unleashed. That's right, Ji Dong's target was the ground. Boom! Everyone could see that 2 huge black and white pillars of fire had already shot out, directly bombarding the ground, exploding 20 meters away from Ji Dong's body. The black and white mixed flames soared into the sky, unexpectedly turning into 2 huge walls of fire that were 10 meters tall. The metal spikes shot out by the metal dragons also arrived at this moment. However, when they pierced into the walls of fire that Ji Dong had turned into, they did not even cause a single spark. Even the metal spikes shot out by the Metal Dragon King were the same. They disappeared silently into the walls of fire. How could the long-range attacks of the Earth Dragons, which were only rank 8 at most, break through the ultimate dual flames? Faced with the huge walls of fire, the 2 metal torrents led by the Golden Thug War Gods came to an abrupt halt. They turned around before they could reach Ji Dong. This was not because the Golden Thug Army was timid. Only when they faced Ji Dong's ultimate dual flames could they truly feel how terrifying it was. The 10 golden thug war gods clearly felt that if they charged forward, they would be dead by the time they stopped. Of course, they saw the 7 yin-yang crowns above Jidong's head. Although their cultivation base had reached 8 yin-yang crowns, for some reason, this feeling rose in their hearts. They commanded their subordinates behind them to change their direction at the same time. They could only fly past the 2 walls of fire from the side. They did not even dare to get within 100 meters of the 2 walls of fire. The air was distorted, and scorching temperatures were continuously released from the 2 walls of fire. How could the Golden Thug Army soldiers know that Jidong's 2 walls of fire were derived from the Red Lotus heavenly fire in the flaming bar? The wings on Jidong's back, which were covered by the divine flame Sage King armor, slowly spread open. He gently flapped them downwards, and his body gradually rose into the air. When he was about 20 meters above the ground, he completely ignored the thousands of Golden Thug Army soldiers who were extremely close to him. His eyes were fixed on the Golden Thug Army's commander, White Voluminous Grass, who was far away. Jidong slowly raised his right hand and pointed his right index finger at White Voluminous Grass, provoking him with a beckoning gesture. Jidong's action was too provocative. He remained calm and unperturbed in the face of thousands of soldiers. He was so arrogant. It was the arrogance of a king, and his temperament of a high and mighty king was undeniable. White Voluminous Grass's gaze, which was hidden under his mask, suddenly froze. Although there were many Golden Thug Army soldiers on the training ground, at this moment, White Voluminous Grass felt as though this was a one-on-one battle between him and Jidong. This was supposed to be an unfair battle. Jidong could not use his mount, and he could not injure anyone. Without a doubt, this greatly restricted his combat strength. However, under such circumstances, he did not retreat. Instead, he chose to face them head-on. He even challenged the Golden Thug Army's most powerful commander, White Voluminous Grass, at the beginning of the hour. White Voluminous Grass patted the Golden Thug Dragon beneath him. Immediately, the Golden Thug Dragon, whose cultivation base was at the peak of the 9th grade, lifted its gigantic head and let out a deafening roar. It spread its wings, and its thick hind legs leaped into the air, propelling its 15-meter-long body into the sky. White Voluminous Grass stretched out his right hand and took a giant dragon spear that was as thick as an arm and 7 meters long from the dragon's saddle. As the Golden Thug Dragon rose into the sky, the sharp tip of the giant dragon's spear was pointed at Jidong. Kill, kill, kill. The warriors of the Golden Thug Army were enraged. Jidong's disregard for them had completely ignited their anger. Amidst their furious roars, the 10 Golden Thug War Gods at the front raised the dragon spears in their hands. Instantly, the sound of metal clanging reverberated throughout the battlefield. Every warrior of the Golden Thug Army raised the spears in their hands, and a dazzling metallic luster was emitted from their bodies. The luster instantly connected and formed 2 metallic torrents. 2 golden rays filled with a metallic aura soared into the sky. They actually dispelled the suppression on Jidong's attributes and soul. The Golden Thug Army that Jidong was facing right now was undoubtedly much stronger than the Annihilation Army. After all, the Golden Thug Army's elite main force was gathered here. Just the combined power of the 10 Golden Thug War Gods was already rather terrifying. The 2 golden rays seemed to instantly reach the level of a super-killing technique. The order they received was to completely destroy Jidong. Now that they were faced with Jidong's arrogant provocation, how could they show any mercy? A cold smile appeared at the corner of White Voluminous Grass's mouth. He thought to himself, if you want to challenge me, you'll have to withstand the Golden Thug Army's 1,000-layered combination technique first. Even I can't go against such a combination technique. The 2 metallic torrents formed in the air and transformed into 2 long metal sabers. As the 10 Golden Thug War Gods roared at the same time, the 2 long metal sabers swept across the sky and slashed at Jidong, who was still in midair. A huge golden light screen was left behind wherever the sabers passed. On the general selection stage, the heavenly stem holy disciples' faces turned grim. It was not because of the Golden Thug Army's combat power, but because of their intense killing intent. Sparring and killing enemies were two completely different concepts. How could these Golden Thug Army soldiers, who had been tempered by iron and blood, conceal their intense killing intent when they had the urge to kill? Fury said coldly to Zhou Xiaoxiao, "I really want to know. Is this a test or a murder?" Zhou Xiaoxiao turned her furious gaze to Wang Daojun and said, "Wang Daojun, what do you mean by this? How did you give the order to the Golden Thug Army?" Wang Daojun glanced at Zhou Xiaoxiao and said calmly, "How can Mr. Ji Dong's potential be unleashed if he doesn't face the pressure of a life-and-death test? Isn't the president very confident in Mr. Ji Dong? Why? Are you scared now?" "You!" Zhou Xiaoxiao was so angry that he was speechless. If he could, he would have crushed this old man to death. However, he couldn't do that. Suddenly, Wang Daojun felt a chill run down his spine. His gaze instinctively shifted to the tall, slender, veiled girl standing among the heavenly stem army. All he saw was a pair of extremely calm eyes. However, he could sense an intense threat of death from those eyes. Chen Xishuan looked at Wang Daojun calmly. She wasn't worried about Ji Dong's safety. No one knew Ji Dong's strength better than she did. However, she couldn't tolerate anyone threatening Ji Dong's life. At this moment, the foolishly rich chairman of the Chamber of Commerce was on Chen Xishuan's death list. Chen Xishuan wasn't bloodthirsty when she was still at the flaming bar. However, no one had ever been able to disobey her once she had set her mind on something. Her faint but determined killing intent sent a chill down Wang Daojun's spine. Two gigantic golden light blades formed a cross in midair and locked onto Ji Dong's body almost instantly. Although it was a linear attack, the power of the attack had completely risen to the level of an intermediate-level ultimate killing technique. It was an earth-shattering attack. It was also the ultimate killing blow that the Golden Thug Army had given to Ji Dong. Ji Dong, who was floating in the air, was an obvious target. The gigantic golden light blades didn't make any sound in the air. The golden cross was filled with a horrifying aura as if it was going to tear the sky apart. Even the radiant heavenly stem holy disciples who were familiar with Ji Dong's strength couldn't help but feel nervous. It was difficult to determine how strong a ultimate killing technique of this level would be. The person who had the most confidence in Ji Dong wasn't Fury, but Chen Xishuan. It wasn't just because she was the flaming bar. It was also because she had fused with Ji Dong's soul many times. She understood Ji Dong's spiritual power the best. Just as the center of the cross was about to land on Ji Dong's body, the ultimate dual flames on his body suddenly retreated and entered his body like a whirlpool. It was as if they were being forced back by the golden light blades. Immediately after, the divine fire sage king armor on Ji Dong's body suddenly turned a strange milky white. Even his silver eyes were no exception. The yin-yang fire formation behind Ji Dong's back also changed and turned into a yin-yang fire assimilation formation. Is he using fire to assimilate gold? The radiant heavenly stem holy disciples widened their eyes. They knew that Ji Dong wouldn't do something without a reason. He must have a reason for doing this. In the next moment, Ji Dong had already thrown a punch in the air. In an instant, a milky white light burst forth from his right fist, forming a milky white halo that was only about a meter in diameter. It looked very fragile, and compared to the golden light that seemed to be able to tear the sky apart, it was far too inferior. However, it was also at this moment that everyone present, be it the spectators or the soldiers of the Golden Fiend Army, felt as if a huge whirlpool had appeared between heaven and earth. It was a huge whirlpool that was filled with an endless suction force. Chapter 420. Just as Ji Dong was facing the super-killing cross unleashed by the Gold Thug Army, which had joined forces to unleash thousands of soldiers, he punched out. A white halo of light that was only 1 meter in diameter appeared at the same time as the assimilation formation. At this moment, it was as if a huge vortex had appeared between heaven and earth. The suction force of this vortex did not harm their bodies, but everyone felt as if their magic power was being extracted at a crazy rate. This huge suction force of the vortex originated from the white halo that was only a meter in diameter and looked as fragile as cheese in the sky. This white halo happened to envelop the intersection point of the two huge golden light blades. Ji Dong's fist landed on the core of the intersection. Buzz, a strange buzzing sound spread throughout the drill ground in an instant, and a strange scene appeared. The super killing skill that was jointly launched by over 1,000 Golden Fiend army warriors, warlords, and gods of war had completely stopped in the air. It seemed like the fragile milky white halo had stopped it from moving forward. All the warriors of the Golden Fiend army who launched the attack felt their spirits lifted at this moment. It was as if their bodies had been sucked dry. Meanwhile, the golden light blade in the sky grew bigger again. The originally bright golden radiance had completely turned dark gold, and the light surrounding the light blade was distorted. Muffled sounds kept erupting around the light blade. Countless black holes formed by the shattering of the air densely surrounded the light blade. It seemed like it was going to destroy the entire world. What's going on? Most of the people widened their eyes in shock. They could not understand why the Golden Fiend army's attack became stronger after Ji Dong blocked it. If the power of the Golden Fiend slash was considered an intermediate-level super-killing skill earlier, then its power had definitely entered the category of an advanced-level super-killing skill. Even the incomplete version of the top-notch super-killing skill that Ji Dong had used with the help of his partners might not be able to withstand such an attack head-on. Why did this happen? Why did Ji Dong's milky white halo increase his opponent's power? Zhou Xiaoxiao's heart skipped a beat, and his eyes were filled with shock. Of course, he knew that the power that Ji Dong had released was chaotic energy, which was full of creativity. He had also cultivated chaotic energy for many years and could apply it to a certain extent. Naturally, he knew the various wonderful uses of chaotic energy. He could vaguely guess what Ji Dong was trying to do at this moment. He could not help but be stunned by Ji Dong's imagination and unparalleled control. Although there were a few saints among the Radiant Light Gang who had a superficial understanding of the profound meaning of chaotic energy, their senses were even weaker than Zhou Xiaoxiao's. Only Chen Xishuan, whose beautiful face was hidden behind the veil, revealed a faint smile. She thought to herself, "My Ji Dong, you finally has your own profound meaning. I'm proud of you." What was Ji Dong trying to do? How could he increase his opponent's power? Wasn't he seeking his own death? The answer was obviously no. How could he do something aimlessly? He would not seek his own death. Ji Dong relied on the creativity of his chaotic force and the assimilation formation of the yin and yang flames to draw in all the powers of the Golden Fiend army who attacked him. The evolution of the Golden Cross was not caused by Ji Dong's power. Instead, it was their own power. To put it simply, Ji Dong had helped them. However, it was not a good thing for them. Under the effects of the profound meaning of chaotic and the yin-yang flames, the creativity of chaotic force was fully unleashed and absorbed the Golden Cross. With Ji Dong's current chaotic force and understanding of the chaotic force, it was impossible for him to resolve this intermediate ultimate kill technique. However, he could use the profound meaning of chaotic force to absorb more of the Golden Fiend army's mana, which was all of their mana. It was not easy to form a combination technique of the same element. The Golden Fiend army had to go through a lot of practice to be able to form such an attack. They had to train together for at least 10 years to reach such a level of coordination. The more people that formed the combination technique, the more difficult the process would be. After the ultimate kill technique was formed, as long as its power had not been unleashed, nobody would be able to free themselves. Therefore, even the 10 powerhouses from the Golden Fiend army, who were at the level of war god, could only watch as their mana was completely absorbed into the Golden Cross. Although this attack had increased the power of the Golden Cross to the level of an advanced ultimate kill technique, their mana had been completely absorbed. All the power of the 1110 people was concentrated in this attack. In other words, they, including their mounts, would not be able to continue fighting after unleashing this attack. How powerful was an advanced ultimate kill technique? Even a rank 96 honorable powerhouse like Zhou Xiaoxiao would not be able to unleash such a advanced ultimate kill technique without relying on the power of a relic. Most of the Devil Masters would not be able to witness such a power that could destroy an entire city in their entire lives. However, no matter how powerful the power was, it would only be effective and destroy its opponent if it hit its target. This advanced ultimate kill technique was extremely powerful. However, when Jidong increased its power to such a level, it also lost its target. The moment the Golden Fiend army soldiers were dazed, they lost their target as well. Jidong stretched his body calmly in midair. He flapped his wings and floated up to a height of 100 meters. With the help of the Chaos Ultimacy and the boost in his opponent's power, he had completely broken away from his opponent's target. The dark golden light shone in the air for close to 10 breaths of time before it gradually faded away. One could see how powerful the demonic power was. Even the Golden Fiend army's commander, White Grass, did not dare to get close to it. He was afraid that he would be attracted by the suction force of the advanced ultimate kill technique. He could only watch as Jidong floated in midair calmly with the Chaos Ultimacy glowing on his body. He was not affected by the advanced ultimate kill technique that contained all the demonic power of 1110 Golden Fiend army soldiers. Amazing! I'm not as good as him. Zhou Xiaoxiao let out a long sigh as admiration gleamed in her eyes. She murmured to herself. The rest of the people from the foolish rich Chamber of Commerce, who were watching the battle, had no idea what was going on. It was too difficult for them to comprehend. Even if Jidong managed to block the Golden Cross slash, Zhou Xiaoxiao would not admire him. What he admired was the fact that Jidong managed to dodge the Golden Fiend army's ultimate kill technique easily with the help of the Chaos Ultimacy. In fact, it was almost negligible. He even absorbed all the Golden Fiend army soldiers' power. At this moment, Zhou Xiaoxiao understood that the 5 great armies combination technique of the same attribute would be meaningless to Jidong from now on. This assessment was just a joke to him. It would no longer be a threat to him. How could the Golden Fiend army defeat Jidong when they were left with only one commander? Although the white voluminous grass had a cultivation base of level 88, Zhou Xiaoxiao knew that he was no match for Jidong in a one-on-one battle, let alone 1 hour. It was not an exaggeration to describe what Jidong had done just now, as he had complete control over the battle. At this moment, Zhou Xiaoxiao completely understood that Jidong had a comprehensive plan from the very beginning. He must have thought of this plan on the spur of the moment and made the decision in a very short time. The ultimate dual firewall was a provocation to the white voluminous grass and the entire Golden Fiend army. All of this was to provoke the Golden Fiend army to launch the ultimate kill technique just now. Then, he would break it calmly and make all the soldiers of the Golden Fiend army lose their combat power. All of this was definitely under Jidong's control. Zhou Xiaoxiao believed that Jidong definitely had more than one way to complete this assessment. However, there was no doubt that the method that Jidong was using now was the one that consumed the least amount of energy and was the most shocking. The radiance of the Golden Cross slash finally disappeared. Jidong was still floating quietly in the air, while the thousands of soldiers of the Golden Fiend army were like deflated balloons. They no longer had the majestic charging ability they had before. The milky white radiance slowly faded from Jidong's body as the ultimate dual fire burned on his hands again. The yin-yang fire assimilation formation behind him also turned into a yin-yang fire condensation formation. He raised his left hand slowly, and the sky darkened along with his left hand. A purple full moon quietly appeared in the pitch-black sky. Then, he raised his right hand as well. Half of the darkened sky lit up, and the golden sunlight seemed to have become even more dazzling. The bright sun and the dark moon were astronomical phenomena that should not have appeared at the same time. However, they appeared in the sky at the same time. Ji Dong was bathed in the light, and his body was emitting a dazzling radiance. The white voluminous grass shouted as he raised the dragon spear in his hand slowly. At the same time, a dazzling radiance burst forth from his giant dragon. However, at this moment, he realized that no matter what he did, he could not stop Ji Dong from performing his skill. His speed and the speed at which he released his demonic power were actually a whole second slower than Ji Dong's. For powerhouses of their level, a second would not necessarily mean failure. However, it meant that the white voluminous grass had no choice but to defend himself. In other words, the only thing that he could do now was to defend himself and not attack. He could only let Ji Dong complete his skill. Based on the speed at which Ji Dong performed his skill, he should have been ahead of the white voluminous grass by more than a second. However, he was currently performing two skills at the same time. The pitch-black ice rose silently, but it did not fly in the direction of the white voluminous grass. The white voluminous grass did not sense that Ji Dong had locked onto him. The black ice floated silently above Ji Dong's head. In the next moment, the dazzling golden flames turned into a giant cone and bombarded the black ice. Time seemed to have frozen at this moment. The thousands of soldiers from the Golden Fiend army could only watch as everything unfolded. They could not even breathe, and their eyes were filled with despair. Forbidden 100,000 serene flame ice. Forbidden 100,000 brilliant sun cone. The two sovereigns' ultimate skills merged quietly in the air. The brilliant sun and the dark moon in the sky seemed to have become exceptionally bright at this moment. Ji Dong's figure hovered there, but he had already become the center of the world. The silhouettes of the Flame Tyrant and the Dark Flame Devil King that were 100 meters tall appeared at the same time. The two sovereigns held each other's right hands, and a huge Tai Chi image appeared behind them quietly. The black and white lights had become the only colors in the world. The white voluminous grass was initially prepared to block the attack, but he could no longer use his skill. The golden fiend dragon beneath him was also trembling slightly. 7 crowns. Was he really a 7 crowns devil? This was a supreme ultimate skill, an intermediate level supreme ultimate skill. The power that Ji Dong displayed at this moment was not inferior to the combined power of the thousands of powerhouses from the Golden Fiend army. With the perfect brilliant sun cone and the perfect serene flame ice, Ji Dong's sun, moon, yin and yang world supreme ultimate skill had evolved from the beginner level to the intermediate level. Moreover, it was an intermediate level supreme ultimate skill that covered a large area. The demonic power that it released was even greater than the Golden Cross slash before it had evolved. If Ji Dong had dodged the Golden Cross slash by relying on his strong control and understanding of the primal chaos, then what he was displaying now was absolute power. The brilliance of the sun, moon, yin and yang world enveloped everyone in the Golden Fiend army. Nothing was wasted. In the face of this intermediate-level supreme ultimate skill, what else could the white voluminous grass, who could not unleash a supreme ultimate skill, do? The black and white lights lingered in the air for a full 30 seconds. However, they did not attack anyone. They merely displayed their power in the air. None of the Golden Fiend army soldiers, who were enveloped by the lights, suffered any damage. What was this? This was perfect control. Moreover, it was perfect control of the supreme ultimate skill. How strong must one's mental strength be to achieve this? Ji Dong's soul power had fused with Chen Sichuan several times, in addition to the recent improvement in his cultivation. Even Fury was dumbfounded by Lin Li's improvement in cultivation and control of mana. The magical waves of the sun, moon, and heaven and earth world gradually disappeared. The golden sun and the dark moon in the sky also disappeared with the departure of the two sovereigns. Everything seemed to have returned to normal. The soldiers of the Golden Fiend army and their mounts were also breathing heavily. However, the way they looked at Ji Dong had completely changed. Of course, they knew that if Ji Dong had used that attack just now, they would have been dead long ago. Not even their bones would have been left behind. Chapter 421. If the sun, moon, yin and yang world that Ji Dong had unleashed had really descended, perhaps only powerhouses with 9 crowns and above would be able to survive. However, they would definitely be severely injured. The soldiers of the Golden Thug Army were dumbfounded. They had even lost the ability to think. Ever since the Golden Thug Army was established, they had never suffered such a crushing defeat. Even when facing the Diamond Thug Army, they were confident that they would be able to put up a fight. However, at this moment they had been defeated, and they had been defeated by one person. Ji Dong's gaze was calm. However, at this moment, in the eyes of the Golden Thug Army, he was even prouder and mightier than before. "Do you still want to continue?" Ji Dong asked nonchalantly in the direction of the white voluminous grass. The white voluminous grass pursed his lips tightly under his helmet. No one was feeling more complicated than him at this moment. As the Golden Thug Army's commander, he had too much glory. However, at this moment, he had no choice but to admit that he had been defeated. He had been utterly defeated. He had not even attacked once. The young man before him had rendered him speechless. He had wanted to kill Yi Futian, but Yi Futian had been merciful and had not launched a real attack at all. At this moment there was only one phrase that appeared in the white voluminous grass's mind: the art of subduing the enemy without fighting. Ji Dong had perfectly demonstrated this. The Golden Thug Dragon slowly landed on the ground with the help of the white voluminous grass. With a shake of his right hand, the spear in his hand flew out and plunged halfway into the ground. At the same time, he took off his helmet and threw away his weapon. This was a sign of surrender. To the Golden Thug Army, this was an unprecedented humiliation. However, Yi Futian had indeed been merciful. He could not understand how the young man before him could possess the power of the ultimate dual fire when he was only a 7-crowned powerhouse. Not only that, but he was able to control his ultimate technique so well. From the looks of it, he had not even used his full strength. In terms of overall strength, it was impossible for Ji Dong to compete with the 1,000-odd elites of the Golden Thug Army on his own. However, his control and application of his strength, as well as his control over the process of battle, were simply too strong. With the combination of the profound meaning of primal chaos and the assimilation formation, he was able to cripple the white voluminous grass. Then, he used his ultimate technique to intimidate the enemy. This was indeed the highest realm of subduing the enemy without fighting. From the beginning to the end, his demonic energy had not come into physical contact with any of the Golden Thug Army's warriors, but he was able to do so. Putting aside the fact that his grandson was already dead, the most important thing was how was he going to retrieve the relic that his grandson had. If he allowed Ji Dong to become the successor of the president, he would be done for. Although losing a relic was not an unforgivable crime, he would not be able to keep his position as the president. Therefore, he had deliberately made things difficult for him and came up with this extremely difficult test. However, the strength displayed by this young man named Ji Dong was even more exaggerated than what Zhou Xiaoxiao had described. He knew very well that even if Zhou Xiaoxiao were to face the elites of the Golden Thug Army, she would not be able to defeat them so easily under the circumstances where she could not injure anyone or use her mount. Was this young man really only at the 7 Crowns cultivation base? The Golden Thug Army slowly retreated. Almost every soldier of the Golden Thug Army had a terrible expression on their faces. They lowered their heads and rode on their metal dragons. Their hearts were filled with shame and sorrow. More than 1,000 elites of the Golden Thug Army were gathered here, but the final result was so pathetic. Ever since the Golden Thug Army was established, they had never suffered such a crushing defeat. Zhou Xiaoxiao's thick legs suddenly stomped on the top of the city wall. His fat body shot into the sky like a meatball cannonball. As he laughed, he opened his arms and gave Ji Dong a big bear hug. "You're really abnormal. I knew I was right about you. I think it won't be long before I'm no match for you. With a genius like you leading the silly rich Chamber of Commerce in the future, I'm afraid there won't be any problems for the Chamber of Commerce even if it takes another 1,000 years. Ji Dong, although this is not enough to express my gratitude, I still have to thank you." Ji Dong smiled faintly and said, "Fatty, when did you become so sentimental? This is only the first test. It's still too early to talk about becoming the president of the Chamber of Commerce." The two descended from the sky. When they were about to land, the divine flame Saint King armor on Ji Dong's body slowly disappeared into his body. Wang Daojuan's expression actually returned to normal in this short period of time. He even nodded slightly at Hyoheim and said with a fake smile, "Congratulations to Mr. Ji Dong for passing the first test. Mr. Ji Dong's strength has indeed shocked us. Mr. Ji Dong, you've worked hard. Please rest first. We will tell you about the next test tomorrow. The next 2 tests may take up a bit of Mr. Ji Dong's time, please forgive us." With that, he once again nodded at Hyoheim and left with the other counselors behind him. He couldn't stay here any longer because he could clearly see that the counselors on his side were looking at Ji Dong in a different light. He couldn't let the counselors have a deeper conversation with Ji Dong. Power was always the most important factor in the process of conquering. Without a doubt, Ji Dong had achieved this point. After all, the people from the foolishly wealthy Chamber of Commerce were all merchants. Business was business. No matter which faction they belonged to, they had to consider their own benefits first. Ji Dong's strength had left a deep impression on them, but the key was his youth. To be able to reach such a level at such a young age meant that his future was limitless. From the bottom of their hearts, the majority of the counselors from the foolishly wealthy Chamber of Commerce had already acknowledged Ji Dong after passing the first test. Zhou Xiaoxiao couldn't help but spit as he watched Wang Daojun leave. In his opinion, it was very likely that Wang Daojun had already received the news that Wang Xiaolei had lost the God artifact, which was why he was making things difficult for him. As someone who despised Wang Daojun in the first place, he was naturally furious. "I'd like to see what other tricks that old bastard can come up with." Ji Dong stretched his body a little, his mind constantly replaying the process of the previous battle. When he was in the air and faced the opponent's ultimate skill, the Golden Cross Slash, his first thought was to use the ultimate skill to meet the opponent's attack head-on. However, he quickly became alert. No matter what, this was not a place he was familiar with. As the leader of the Heavenly Stem Saints, he could not let his strength be consumed too much. If something happened, he would not have the ability to deal with it. Therefore, he released his chaotic force, intending to use the primal chaos arcana to remove the opponent's lock on him and easily dodge the power of the ultimate skill. However, when he released his chaotic force and connected it with his soul force, he suddenly understood the huge pressure of the Golden Cross. This was because he suddenly remembered everything that had happened when he first comprehended the origin of chaos. At that time, his chaotic force had easily swept away the magic in the sky above a city. Although it only lasted for a very short period of time, that scene was still clearly imprinted in his mind. Everything that happened next could be said to be an attempt by Ji Dong, and his attempt was successful. He finally found another way to use the chaotic force. Who said that creativity could not be used in actual combat? Didn't he use the creativity of the profound chaos? With the help of the assimilation formation, such a miraculous scene occurred. The Heavenly Stem Saints also surrounded him. Du Xian patted her towering chest and said, "Teacher, you scared me to death just now. With so many people attacking you, I thought you couldn't take it anymore. Jin's words were more direct. How did you do it? She had also comprehended the mystery of chaos, so she was even more curious about what Ji Dong had done just now. In terms of the application of chaos, whether it was her or fury, they still could not apply it in actual combat. Ji Dong said, "Let's go back and talk about it. I will tell you everything I felt at that time." Zhou Xiaoxiao laughed and said, "Go back for what? Let's go, I'll treat you to a drink to celebrate. I'm really happy today. It really makes me feel good to be able to make that old guy Wang Daojun suffer." Ji Dong, Fury, I know you two are drunkards. Today, Fatty will treat you to a drink. Fatty's words made everyone speechless. Fury smiled bitterly and said, "It's only morning and you're already drinking?" Zhou Xiaoxiao smiled and said, "Who said that we can't drink in the morning? Ji Dong may have to go through the second assessment tomorrow, so drinking in the morning is just right. After drinking, he can go back and have a good rest to face the next assessment. Let's go together." Meow Meow suddenly walked out and said, "I don't drink. You guys can go and drink. We girls might as well go back and rest for a while or walk around outside and see the beauty of Jean City. It's my first time coming to Jean City." Du Xin'er waved her hand in agreement and said, "Sister Meow Meow is right. We girls don't need to drink. I want to go shopping. Jean City is the most suitable place for me to go shopping. Sister Jean Bao Er, let's go together." She was a Gung Metal Element Devil Master, so it was naturally easier for her to buy things that were suitable for her here, such as crystal cores. Jean hesitated for a while, but still nodded and said, "Okay." She also belonged to the metal element, and she had a strange feeling about Jean City. She also wanted to go around and see. She had been resurrected by the flaming bar for many years. Jean clearly told her that before she was frozen, she probably belonged to the Western Jin Empire. This was the capital of her motherland, and she also wanted to go and see. Lan Bauer nodded silently and did not object. Ever since she met Ji Dong again, she had become very quiet. In the past, when the flaming bar was still there, she knew that she had no chance. But now, she found that she still had no chance even if the flaming bar was gone. Even a perfect girl like Chen Xishuan, who was so deeply in love with Ji Dong, could not get Ji Dong's approval. If it were her, she could only feel sad again. Therefore, she buried all her feelings in her heart and devoted all her energy to cultivation. Recently, her mood had become better. Chen Xishuan frowned slightly. Whether it was shopping or drinking, she was not very interested. She only wanted to be with Ji Dong, but the other four girls had already said that they were not going to drink. If she were to ask to go, it would be a little. At this moment, Meow Meow pulled Chen Xishuan's hand and whispered in her ear, "Xishuan, sometimes you can't be too close to men. You have to give them some space." Chen Xishuan was stunned. She did not really understand Meow Meow's words, but she still nodded in the end. Meow Meow giggled and pulled Chen Xishuan, saying, "Let's go back to the room and chat." Watching the girls leave, the smile on Chubby's face suddenly became a little wretched. He said in a low voice, "It's fine if they don't go. Let's go and drink to celebrate. It's fine if the girls don't want to go, but you guys must go. You don't lack the time to drink for cultivation." Speaking of drinking, Ji Dong and Fury faintly felt something. Recently, they had not drunk much and had put all their effort into cultivation. However, after drinking so much every day, they were still a little addicted to alcohol. Naturally, the wine that Chubby found was not bad, so they were also a little tempted. When they returned to Jean City, Zhou Xiaoxiao first found a place to change into ordinary clothes, then he took them to Silly Half City of the Silly Rich Chamber of Commerce. In other places, few people would recognize his clothes, but in Jean City, there were too many people who recognized his robe. In addition, with his special body shape, it was not easy for him to drink in peace, so he deliberately changed his clothes. In this way, no one would recognize him, and it would be more convenient for him to drink. After entering Silly Half City, Zhou Xiaoxiao took them directly to Silly Rich Hotel in Jin City. Although it was not as big as Silly Rich Hotel in Central Plain City, it was still quite amazing. After all, Jin City was the headquarters of Silly Rich Chamber of Commerce. In terms of size, this Silly Rich Hotel was only second to the one in Central Plain City. After Zhou Xiaoxiao deliberately changed his clothes, the ordinary service staff did not recognize him. They asked for a private room, and everyone sat in it. "Fatty, there are only 7 of us. Why do you want such a big private room?" After entering the room, Fury could not help but ask. It was no wonder that he would ask this question. In the private room that Zhou Xiaoxiao brought them to, the table alone was a giant round table that could accommodate 20 people. It was obviously not very convenient to use such a big table for 7 people to eat and drink. Zhou Xiaoxiao's eyes flashed with some wretchedness. He chuckled and said, "What's the point of only men drinking? I'll call a few girls in to pour wine and take food for everyone. That's better." Hearing this, everyone could not help but be stunned. Tianji shook his head helplessly, while Ji Dong and Fury looked a little unhappy. Chapter 422. Zhou Xiaoxiao's observation skills were very strong. Seeing that Ji Dong and Du Ming didn't look too good, she hurriedly added, "Don't worry, the young ladies of our Silly Rich Hotel aren't like what you think. They've all gone through special training. Firstly, they're guaranteed to be clean and definitely virgins. Secondly, they'll simply refill our drinks and take our food. They definitely won't harass you. We're all men here, this small scene is nothing. Just wait here, I'll be right back." With that said, she immediately left without waiting for anyone to object. Lang Tianyi and Du Ming both had calm expressions. It was obvious that they had seen such situations before. Lang Tianyi was the future commander of the Diamond Army. He had been to the Silly Rich Hotel's Chamber of Commerce more than once or twice. He said, "Young master, what Chairman Zhou said is true. The young ladies of the Silly Rich Hotel are all very well behaved. They're definitely not the type that sells their bodies." After hearing Lang Tianyi's explanation, Ji Dong's expression became a little better. He didn't think too much about who would be pouring the wine. Whenever he thought of wine, he would think of the flaming bar. After a while, the fatty returned. "I've arranged the food and drinks." "Oh right, Ji Dong, aren't you a bartender? Aren't you going to show us your skills?" "Fury, if I remember correctly, you should be the chairman of the Bartenders Guild's Central Plains City branch, right? You 2 brothers are so good at mixing drinks. Aren't you going to show us your skills?" Fury shook his head and said, "Forget it. This place is too small. I haven't had the mood to mix drinks for a long time. In terms of mixing drinks, Little Junior is much better than me." Ji Dong looked at Zhou Xiaoxiao apologetically and said, "I'm sorry, fatty. I'm not trying to disrespect you. However, I've already sworn that in this life, I'll never mix drinks for anyone. I'll only mix drinks for my deceased wife." Ji Dong's voice was very calm. However, after hearing his words, everyone couldn't help but feel a sense of respect. Everyone knew that Ji Dong was deeply in love with the flaming bar. This could be seen from his relationship with Chen Xishuan. Chen Xishuan's stunning beauty couldn't break through Ji Dong's heart. If it were any of them, even Fury, they wouldn't dare to say that they would be able to do it. However, Ji Dong did it. After a while, 7 young ladies walked in from outside. Each of them was holding a tray with 3 bottles of wine on it. With Ji Dong and Fury's understanding of wine, they could tell that none of the bottles were younger than 50 years old at a glance. After the 7 young ladies walked in, they walked to the 7 people and bowed slightly. The young lady standing next to Ji Dong was the prettiest. She looked to be about 16 or 17 years old. She had a slender figure and was at least 1.75 meters tall. Her skin was fair and tender, and her straight black hair cascaded down her back to her buttocks. She didn't have any makeup on and was as pure as a lotus flower. The youthful aura she exuded made Ji Dong subconsciously look at her. The young lady stood next to Ji Dong respectfully and bowed slightly with her hands on her waist. She said, "Hello, sir. May I serve you?" Ji Dong nodded. The young lady then sat down next to him. Just as Lang Tianyi said, these young ladies were very well behaved. After sitting down, they were about half a meter away from Ji Dong. They didn't seem to have any intention of getting closer. However, the pure young lady sitting next to Ji Dong was obviously very curious about Ji Dong's white hair. She couldn't help but look at him a few more times. "Hello, sir. My name is Piao Piao. It's my pleasure to serve you. We have 100-year-old whiskey, 100-year-old water of life, and vodka. What would you like to drink?" Hearing these three names, Ji Dong couldn't help but show a trace of surprise on his face. He couldn't help but look at Zhou Xiaoxiao and said, "Fatty, you're really generous. The 100-year-old water of life was a 100-year-old brandy. This kind of wine and vodka were very expensive." However, what surprised Ji Dong the most was the 100-year-old whiskey. Although there wasn't much emphasis on brands in this world, he was very clear about the meaning of this bottle of wine. The so-called Centennial Selection referred to the whiskey brewed every year within 100 years. There were a total of 100 different whiskeys that were blended together according to equal amount. This kind of liquor had the best aftertaste. Unlike ordinary whiskeys, the overlapping aftertaste of different years was enough to make people enjoy it and forget to leave. Generally speaking, a 20-year selection was already very rare. This Centennial Selection was undoubtedly the best among the wines that had a price but no market. The fatty laughed and said, "Of course I have to use the best wine to entertain you. You two bartenders, come and taste this 100-year-old whiskey. See if it's worthy of its reputation." Ji Dong nodded to the young lady named Piao Piao and said, "Then let's have the 100-year-old whiskey." "Yes." The young lady replied respectfully. She gracefully opened the bottle cap and poured a glass for Ji Dong. Then she sat quietly at the side. Seeing that Ji Dong had made such a choice, the others also chose this kind of wine. For example, Yao Qianshu and Fury, who were most familiar with Ji Dong, and Du Ming, who understood Ji Dong's bartending skills, admired Ji Dong's bartending skills even more than his strength. The amber liquor looked a little sticky, but it was extremely attractive. The strong but not gaudy fragrance of the wine immediately filled the room. At this time, a waiter had already served the wine with side dishes. Everyone had just finished breakfast and obviously wouldn't be hungry at this time. Zhou Xiaoxiao's arrangement was also because of this. Ji Dong said to Du Ming, "Condense some ice cubes for everyone. Each person will have 3 cubes, each an inch in diameter. No matter what year the whiskey is, it will be a little dry. After adding ice, the taste will be richer, and it will remove the smoke. When the ice has melted a third, it will taste the best." "Yes, teacher." Du Ming raised his right hand, and a faint black light gently rolled in the air. The temperature in the room dropped slightly. The next moment, when the black light disappeared, there were 3 crystal-clear ice cubes in everyone's glass. Seeing this scene, the young ladies who were pouring the wine couldn't help but show some surprise, but good training prevented them from crying out. The most curious one was the girl named Piao Piao, who was next to Ji Dong. Looking at Ji Dong's face, he was clearly the youngest of the group. How did he become her teacher? Zhou Xiaoxiao raised her glass and said, "Come, let me toast to everyone. Welcome to Jincheng as guests. Today, everyone must drink to their heart's content." Ji Dong raised his glass and gently swirled it. Because of the ice cubes, there was a faint layer of mist on the crystal glass, and the amber liquor looked even more attractive. After gently swirling the glass, he took a sip. The rich malt aroma and layers of flavor immediately filled his mouth. The liquor flowed down his throat and suddenly became hot. The aftertaste swarmed him. It was indeed a fine wine that had been carefully selected for hundreds of years. While everyone drank, Fury asked Zhou Xiaoxiao, "Fatty, what do you think the next 2 tests will be?" I really can't think of any tests in the Chamber of Commerce that will be difficult for little brother. Don't tell me that little brother will be able to defeat you? Zhou Xiaoxiao smiled bitterly and said, according to the rules of the Chamber of Commerce, I can't know the test questions in advance, so I can't do anything about it. However, don't underestimate Wang Daojun. He will definitely come up with some strange ideas. The later tests will definitely be more difficult than today's. Of course, I have absolute confidence in Jidong. No matter what test it is, I believe he will pass smoothly. Jidong laughed and said, Fatty, don't try to entice me. I'll try my best. While everyone was talking, the door of the private room suddenly opened a gap. A person dressed in the clothes of a stupid rich hotel manager stood outside and showed half of his face. He waved to Piao Piao, who was next to Jidong. Piao Piao sat next to Jidong and refilled his glass. She said apologetically, I'm sorry, sir. I'll go out for a while. I'll be back soon. Jidong nodded. Only then did she stand up and walk out. Zhou Xiaoxiao frowned, and her face was obviously a little unhappy. Although this girl named Piao Piao was not as perfect as Chun Sixuan in terms of appearance, she was already as beautiful as Lan Bauer and Du Xen. She was also the most beautiful one in the stupid rich hotel in Jincheng. Therefore, he specially asked her to pour wine for Jidong. Of course, he did not reveal his identity today. Instead, he used the high cost of so many bottles of top-notch wine to find the most beautiful girl. At this time, he was called out, so he more or less felt a little embarrassed. When he looked up to see Hyohai move, Jidong looked calm, as if he didn't mind anything. Everyone was chatting, so he was relieved. This wine is really good. You can't buy it outside. I'll pack a few bottles later. Fury praised as he drank. The fat man smiled bitterly and said, Fury, do you have a conscience? You drank it and still want to take it. Don't you feel embarrassed? Fury laughed and said, What's there to be embarrassed about? We're all here to support you. It'll be a waste if we don't take advantage of a rich man like you. Recently, everyone had been cultivating hard, especially when they were still cultivating the 5 elements formation. It could be said that everyone was doing their best and racking their brains to understand and cultivate the profound meaning of the 5 elements formation. Ever since the Light Palace and the holy disciples had gathered, each of their cultivation levels had improved to varying degrees. Their situation was much better than when they were cultivating alone. At this moment, the door of the private room opened quietly, and Piao Piao walked in from outside. Because everyone was chatting, no one noticed her. She quietly went to Jidong's side and sat down carefully. Jidong subconsciously glanced at her, and Piao Piao smiled apologetically at Hyoheim. She picked up the wine bottle and poured some wine for him. Jidong was very observant. He clearly saw that Piao Piao's face had a faint blush, and there was a faint smell of alcohol on her body. Frowning slightly, Jidong's gaze stopped on her face. After Piao Piao poured the wine, she happened to see the almost tangible light in Jidong's eyes. Her delicate body suddenly trembled, and she softly explained, An important guest came to the hotel. The manager asked me to go and toast a few glasses of wine. I'm really sorry. After listening to her explanation, Jidong didn't say anything, and everyone continued chatting and drinking. Not long after, about 1/3 of the wine had been drunk. Under the influence of alcohol, the heavenly stem holy disciples felt relaxed, and their conversation naturally became more enthusiastic. They talked more about their experiences in cultivation. Anyway, the young ladies who poured the wine couldn't understand what they were talking about. Everyone talked about some of the problems they had in cultivating the 5 elements formation. As for the study of the 5 elements formation, Jidong's understanding was not as profound as Fury's. As the big brother, Fury answered everyone's questions one by one. At this moment, the door of the private room opened again, and the face that had appeared previously appeared for the second time. Similarly, it waved at Piao Piao. Piao Piao pursed her lips and secretly glanced at Ji Dong. Seeing that Ji Dong was paying attention to the others' conversation, she simply didn't greet them anymore. She bent down and quietly walked out along the wall. Although Ji Dong didn't look over, how could he not know that Piao Piao had left? Fatty Zhou Xiaoxiao directly gave Hyoheim an inquiring look. Ji Dong shook his head at Zhou Xiaoxiao. He and his brothers were here to drink and didn't want to cause trouble, but the look in his eyes had changed a little. This time, Piao Piao left for a little longer. When everyone had drunk 2/3 of the wine, she hurried back. Her face was flushed, and the smell of alcohol on her body was even stronger. Her beautiful eyes were filled with worry and self-pity. Zhou Xiaoxiao once again gave Hyoheim an inquiring look. Ji Dong just glanced at him and shook his head gently. He didn't want to ruin the character of his brothers. Moreover, the Silly Rich Hotel belonged to the Silly Rich Chamber of Commerce. He still had to give Zhou Xiaoxiao face. After all, Zhou Xiaoxiao didn't reveal her identity here. Everyone came out to drink for fun, not to cause trouble. But at this time, before Piao Piao could even sit down, the door opened a gap again. It was still the same person who showed his face and waved at Piao Piao eagerly for the third time. A trace of deep helplessness appeared on Piao Piao's face. Just as she was about to stand up for the third time, a big hand appeared on her shoulder. "You don't need to go anywhere." Ji Dong's calm voice rang out, and the people who were chatting excitedly immediately stopped, their gazes also focused on him. Ji Dong said lightly, "People need face and trees need bark. I can do it again and again, but I can't do it again and again. I want to see who wants to slap my face." Piao Piao was stunned. She didn't know why, but she suddenly felt that the big hand holding her shoulder was so stable. It was just a hand, but it gave her a strong sense of security. The uneasiness and anxiety in her heart, as well as the uncomfortable feeling brought by the wine just now, seemed to fade away quietly. Chapter 423. Although Ji Dong's words were very calm and his voice was not loud, everyone in the room heard it. Naturally, the hotel manager who opened the door heard it too. He immediately became anxious and pushed the door open. I'm sorry to disturb your drinking. It's like this, a regular customer of Pia Piao's has come to our hotel, so I asked Pia Piao to go over and greet her. Please forgive me. I will make a toast to apologize to you later. Pia Piao, hurry up and come out." As he spoke, he winked at Pia Piao, signaling her to come out quickly. Pia Piao looked at Ji Dong awkwardly and did not know what to do for a while. Ji Dong glanced at the hotel manager coldly. The hotel manager only felt a chill from the soles of his feet to his whole body in an instant. The smile on his face suddenly became more forced. "Get out!" Zhou Xiaoxiao almost roared. With a wave of her right hand, a hidden force directly swept the manager out of the door and closed the door. Zhou Xiaoxiao was really depressed. She just wanted to be a little more free and have a good drink without being disturbed. In the end, there was another problem. Ji Dong looked at Zhou Xiaoxiao faintly and said, "Fatty, it seems that I have some conflicts with your stupid rich hotel. Every time I come to this stupid rich hotel, no matter where it is, there is bound to be a problem." Zhou Xiaoxiao stood up with a gloomy face and said, "I will deal with it now. I will definitely give you an explanation." Ji Dong shook his head and said, "No need, I will deal with it myself." He did not care who poured the wine for him, and it did not even matter if there was anyone who poured the wine for him. But if he did not respond to such continuous provocation, he would not be Ji Dong. Just as he said before, things should not be done more than 3 times. For the 3rd time in a row, he asked Pia Piao, who poured the wine for him, to leave. This had already violated Ji Dong's bottom line. The fatty was stunned for a moment. After taking a deep breath, he slowly nodded and said, "You can do whatever you want. Even if you tear this place down, I will not say anything." He was really depressed. He thought to himself, what are these bastards in the hotel thinking? Even if they didn't know his identity, How could they order such expensive drinks from his table be ordinary people? He had specifically asked them to find the prettiest girls to entertain Ji-dong, but they had actually called them out again and again. Not only had they humiliated Ji-dong, but they had also humiliated Fatty himself. Ji-dong let go of Pia Piao's hand and said to her, "Lady Pia Piao, take me to the place where I told you to drink." Piao Piao was greatly shocked. Her beautiful face revealed a trace of a pleading expression as she said, "Mister, please don't do this. I won't go out." Ji-dong looked into her eyes and repeated, "Take me there." Pia Piao still wanted to say something, but when her eyes met with Ji-dong's, her body suddenly trembled as if she had been struck by lightning. The eyes of the white-haired youth in front of her seemed to have a kind of magical power that made it impossible for her to refuse. She could only nod and lead Ji-dong out. The two of them went out. Fury laughed and said, "Come, let's continue drinking. Don't let such a small matter affect everyone's drinking mood." Hearing Fury's words, Zhou Xiaoxiao's complexion also became a bit better. Of course, he knew that Fury was helping him out. He nodded to him and thought, "It seems that I really have to let this kid take a few bottles of good wine and leave." Ji-dong took Piao Piao out of the door. The supervisor who was previously kicked out by Zhou Xiaoxiao had disappeared. No one knew where he went. Piao Piao's expression was obviously a bit nervous. From time to time, Hyoheim would look at her, but how could she find any clues from Ji-dong's expression? Not far away, a noisy voice came from a private room. "Trash, what do I need you for? You can't even call a hostess to accompany you. You're really trash. Hurry up and call her over. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Not to mention a small supervisor like you, even your manager can't afford to offend you." Yes, Your Highness, please calm down." This second voice belonged to the previous supervisor. When Ji-dong came to the door of this room with Piao Piao's chin, the door just opened, and the supervisor came out with a bitter expression. It was obvious that he absolutely could not afford to offend this so-called highness. On the other side, Zhou Xiaoxiao just waved his hand and kicked him out. Obviously, she was being merciful. But if he went again, would she still be merciful? Why did he encounter such bad luck in the morning? As he was thinking, he suddenly found that there were two more people in front of him. When he looked up and saw Ji-dong, the expression on his face could be said to be as wonderful as it could be. He opened his mouth as if he had just eaten two dead flies. His Adam's apple moved, and he did not know what to say. A hidden force gushed out from Ji-dong. The supervisor's body tilted, and he had already fallen to the side. Ji-dong took a step forward, past Piao Piao, and directly pushed the door into the private room. The supervisor was very anxious. He quickly got up, grabbed Piao Piao, and asked anxiously, "What's the matter? Why did you bring him here? Do you know that something bad will happen? Can you bear the responsibility?" Piao Piao said aggrievedly, "I can't help it. The guest insisted that I bring him here. I don't know why I can't disobey his words. But, supervisor, I think this matter is not something that we can handle and bear. You'd better find the manager as soon as possible. Otherwise, we may really be in big trouble." The supervisor nodded in agreement and said, "Okay, you wait here, I'll go find the manager right away. I really don't know what those outsiders are thinking. Even if they're strong, they must be crazy to dare to make trouble in our stupid rich hotel. I hope they don't become corpses before they leave." Ji-dong walked into the private room and glanced around. There were a lot of people in the private room. There were more than 20 people in the private room. Among them, there were 6 young girls who were pouring wine and 6 men sitting there. In addition, there were more than 10 people standing behind the 6 sitting men. At first glance, it was obvious that they were guards or something. Sitting on the main seat was a man who looked to be in his 30s. He wore a purple gold crown on his head and was dressed in a luxurious robe embroidered with a white tiger pattern. The other 5 people were of different ages, but they were all older than the man on the main seat. Seeing Ji-dong coming in from outside, they could not help but be stunned. Ji-dong's white hair was really too eye-catching. "Who are you? Who allowed you to come in?" The man in the main seat shouted, and immediately two tall guards walked up from the side. At the same time, they reached out to grab Hyoheim. These guards had obviously gone through special training. Their steps were steady and their speed was surprisingly fast. Almost as soon as they took a step forward, they had already blocked all of Ji-dong's paths of advance. They also faintly protected the 6 people sitting at the table, making it impossible for Ji-dong to directly pose a threat to them. The hands of the 2 guards were grabbing onto Hyoheim's shoulders. Ji-dong did not dodge and allowed them to grab onto him. Only when their hands were about to touch his body did he shake his shoulders slightly. This seemingly light movement gave people a feeling that it was filled with explosive power. Back then, the soaring serpent strength transformation technique that the soaring serpent had imparted to him had completely changed his physique. Whether it was his tendons, bones, flexibility, or explosiveness, they had all reached the peak of what a human body could achieve. This was not as simple as using it to save his life. The reason why Ji-dong was able to use the soaring serpent's soaring serpent flash was also because he had cultivated the soaring serpent strength transformation technique. It could be seen how strong his body was. The 2 guards did not even have the chance to touch his shoulders. As his shoulders trembled, a huge force surged out. The 2 guards groaned at the same time and flew backwards, fiercely crashing into the walls on both sides of the room. Even now, Ji-dong's hands were still behind his back. His gaze was calm, as if nothing had happened. The man sitting on the main seat, Gui Ran, was very confident in his guards. Seeing that Ji-dong had defeated the 2 of them so easily, he was immediately shocked. Together with the others, he suddenly stood up from the table. The young girls who were pouring wine even let out a cry of surprise. "Who are you?" The other guards did not rush forward like Hyoheim. Instead, they quickly protected the 6 people behind them. At the same time, they released their own magic power. For a moment, even though the private room was extremely spacious, it was still filled with a strong magic power. These 10 guards were all experts with 6 crowns and above. The 2 closest to the man on the main seat had even reached 7 crowns. Ji-dong said lightly, "Who I am is not important. What is important is that you have sent people to my place 3 times to call a girl. If you cannot give me an explanation, then I will give you an explanation." The man on the main seat suddenly realized that it was Piao Piao who had caused the problem. Piao Piao was definitely a rare beauty. The key was her purity, which made the man very tempted. However, they had come a step too late. Piao Piao had already been arranged to go to the private room where Ji-dong and the others were. That was why he had made the supervisor call Piao Piao over to toast several times. Piao Piao was just a weak girl, so what? "Boy, do you know who I am?" the young man shouted angrily. The corner of Ji-dong's mouth twitched. "Reveal your identity?" Every time someone revealed their identity, it meant that they were trying to be tough on the outside but cowardly on the inside. Ji-dong said lightly, "Who you are doesn't mean anything to me. I just want you to give me an explanation. Otherwise, none of you will be able to walk out of here." "Young man, don't be too arrogant. This is Jean City." This time, it was an old man who had been sitting next to the young man on the main seat. He looked dignified and dignified. Ji-dong tilted his head and looked at him. He said, "I am arrogant. What about it? Do it." The young man on the main seat couldn't bear it anymore. He shouted loudly. The 10 guards released their magic power and rushed towards Ji-dong almost at the same time. Fighting indoors was completely different from fighting outdoors. There were so many people releasing their magic power in such a small space, so the magic fluctuations in the private room were extremely strong. Ji-dong snorted coldly. He waved his right hand and the door opened. Then, he waved his hands and the 6 girls who were in charge of pouring wine were swept out. The door closed for the second time. Although he was here to cause trouble, he wouldn't hurt the innocent. While Ji Dong was doing this, the guards had already surrounded him. They could see that Ji Dong wasn't simple, but they couldn't figure out how strong Ji Dong was. The two six-crown magicians shouted at the same time. They raised their hands and a strong magic light condensed in their palms. They directly slapped towards Ji Dong. After all, this was the Foolish Rich Hotel. The Foolish Rich Chamber of Commerce was very important to the Western Jin Empire. They didn't want to destroy this place. Ji Dong took a step forward and raised his hands at the same time. He also raised his hands and slapped towards the two six-crown magicians. However, he didn't release his yin-yang crown at all. There wasn't even a trace of magic light on his hands. It was as if he was just an ordinary person who had just slapped two ordinary palms. There was no sound. When Ji Dong's palms came into contact with the two six-crown magicians, a strange scene appeared. The bodies of the two six-crown magicians stiffened, and the magic power in their hands seemed to disappear. They just quietly melted away, and their bodies didn't move. Even the expressions on their faces were the same as before. It was as if they had suddenly turned into statues. The fight between the two sides was completed in an instant. No one understood what had happened. The room was too small, and the guards were worried that this was the Foolish Rich Chamber of Commerce. They couldn't rush forward at once. So, two more people came up and tried to pull back the two people who had attacked Hyoheim. However, when they touched the bodies of their companions, the expressions on their faces turned to horror. The two guards who had exchanged blows with Ji Dong earlier had faint green smoke coming out of their orifices at the same time. The green smoke had a burnt smell. With just a casual pull, the two people had already fallen down, no longer breathing. If Ji Dong had used his magic power and magic skills to defeat the two six-crown magicians, or even kill them, these guards wouldn't have been so shocked. Those were two six-crown magicians. In the world of magicians, if one's cultivation could break through the six-crown magicians, they would have entered another level. They could be said to be high-level magicians. However, these two strong magicians had collapsed at the slightest contact with this white-haired young man who looked like he was only in his 20s. This was beyond the scope of their understanding, and they couldn't understand what was going on. Ji Dong didn't look at the two magicians. He wasn't bloodthirsty. As long as they didn't attack him, he wasn't willing to attack these obviously hired guards. However, once he attacked, he wouldn't hold back.